what's best for them? Are you confused? If you have bad credit, should just settle for an older car. Is there a better option for you? Hi, this is Vinci Luzzi from WeFindYourCar.ca and find out all the answers to all your questions this Saturday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. Here, call us live with any questions you may have about new or used vehicles, and you will get answers to help you save money. WeFindYourCar.ca.
Yeah, you can find that car. Save me a couple bucks. I'm suspecting my buddies donated it to the cancer kids, but they won't admit it. So if you really have time to kill, you can go through all these videos and compare when I mention dipshit in the title and when I don't, but I really don't want to mention this dipshit. If I don't mention him, the videos get shut down over and fucking over until I do. Then he gets really mad. Okay, make up your mind. So mathematically, keep playing the same tracks over and over because I keep starting the joint and starting on the same track, but I'm starting like halfway or 2/3 of the way through over and over because of our fan base here. When I say fan base, I don't mean a pedestal. I know dipshit doesn't believe it's possible, but I can hear when there's one more sound on these videos because I'm listening to it. I don't believe that, but I test that over. I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's It's I keep chain lighting the cigarettes because I keep setting the joint down and starting over. I've literally gone through about 20 of them just not smoking the joint. It's fucking hilarious to me. I don't know why you bother. I don't understand what purpose you serve. You're a complete waste of oxygen, bro. I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's so I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. It's Yeah, start dumping on the cell phone. You're a genius, bro. That delays it a few seconds, and then I won't notice for a few seconds. Wow, he does not believe. He's got to find it on the network just to prove they. I'm not joking, bro. I still haven't touched anything. So I don't know what you see, but this is what I see. Frozen, nothing. 30 seconds at a time, over and over. I can't see it. See what I'm talking about? I reach like this. Oh, the whole thing flips out because something is giving it input. When I reach over near the mouse, meaning on this show. I'm just dealing with my boys and I get hit. Hey, you're more mad. You get mad if I don't mention pedophiles. You get mad if I do. So fuck off and kill yourself. The channel ain't about you, stupid. And remember, I don't actually technically know what your name is, so I know you've been trying to drop for months to get me to tell someone about you that I'll get my channel in trouble. I'll give a fuck. I can't. I know where you physically are right now.
You tell us something about yourself.
The details of my life are quite inconsequential.
Oh no, please, please. Let's hear about your child.
I live that Buster Sweet roll with that ambition. My whole childhood I've been on a mission. Of the habits of the mission. Only take me a second to throw a clip in. Flick shots to get the dip in. You be wise to listen.
Keep it up, Chomo. Keep it up.
Crack dealer, rolling in a cool jackal. That's the bow to the gas I'm throwing at you. I'm the 22, my gun with the wind, I'm pouring at you. See around here, we do more than we have to. First we shoot you, then we stab you. In the mood of captain, cops don't care what happened. That's why I'm stick to the gangs and drove. Trafficking, they say my destiny is hell, and then I have a sip for every one of my crack sales. I say fuck it, tell the devil
so creative. You verified the phones there. You've also shown you can't dump on both devices at the same time. Wow, you're such a super hacker. Why does the world pick on you, super intelligent, super hacker, supreme white being? Why? I don't understand.
I'm on this road, and I don't know where I'm heading. Got a feeling these are dead until I stroll. Last century of a lost soul. I gave God a cold shoulder. Now I'm on my own, a cold soldier. Let's see war, prove me, judge me not. Hustle, rock, and blaze weed. If I'm not supposed to, maybe Lord, you come and take me. Bring an end to this dedication dream. Till the end, I'll be chasing with my team. Making it by me. 17 so far. When you selling what they selling, it's so far. But I just get a go, Lord. I'm a soldier, till my soul burns. Harder to this cold world. I'm with a bug, how the end turns out. I'm a ride till the sun burns out. Everything in this world gets swallowed by time. Money makes the world keep my head aside.
So it's about midnight. I'm gonna call it midnight. This is my 9 o'clock joint. Actually, this is extra. This is the 8 o'clock joint. That's how much time they've spent on this today. I've put the joint out that many fucking times in a row. That's only 3 joints or 4. That's 12 fucking sessions of that. This is how these idiots spend their days.
Fucking dead, homie, so I guess this life is more than just a habit. The day was a good day, but the night comes and watch darkness falls. Up the walls they crawl, demons and all, how is it that I'm always involved? My life is one big wrong, never to be solved. I'm walking at a pace to see it more like a crawl. But trust there ain't no time to pause. I pulled the weapon out and leave them dead just because. For you cows, I keep it extra slug. I'm sick of holding the paper, seeing buckets of the road. You'll be a pretty boy, I can fuck your ass up. I heard the girls like all the wounds. Stars and rest in peace tattoos. Don't worry, dog, you can have some too. And all your homeboys can have some too. What else can I do? You shooting at me, you shooting at you. It's never over till I say it's so. And even when I say it's over, trust me still, cause my intent is to kill. I let this verse be the evidence to send me to jail. Life is precious and death is divine. They say those that search will eventually find. I think they up their fucking mind, cause I still ain't found mine.
Of course, in 6 hours, I couldn't find 10 minutes to upload a video.
Yeah, this is for you, for all you crackheads. Yeah, this is for you, for all you drug users. This one's yours, for all you drug users.
You're really stifling the free speech thing, man.
The sell love, keep a hooker on every corner, every block. Stick to the rules and check the shit on those that wanna talk. Walk pussy and I'll show you how the hustlers walk. I turn fees to fans, fans to fees. I'm living a hustler's dream. Still doped up the brain, I need some weed, and that's enough coke for me. Plus I took 2.5 cats a day, and now I'm feeling like spitting it free. I'm feeling like spitting it free, just spitting it free. Yeah, all the bad guys are even where they caps at, where they caps at, but they phone dead, and the country don't like rats, that's a fact. I put buttons to front teeth on that, matter of fact, where they at? The NTC ain't coming back. But it's all G, you know me, when I'm too drunk to see, I love the drive. Making bets on whether or not we gon' survive, up doing 95 on the wrong side, and they say we doing nothing with our lives. I'm surprised that I lasted this long, I always imagined I would die alone, but I guess that's just how the story's told. No one makes money off hip-hop, I'd rather sell coke, I don't steal though. I ain't no fucking thief, I ain't robbing motherfuckers in the streets. If I'm doing dirt, I'm on your doorstep with a 20 piece, screaming the first one for free. I make money, man, any way that I can, from 100 grand to the last $2 bill in my
There's a photo out there on the internet somewhere of the Black Diamond Riders riding eastbound on the westbound lanes of the, what do you call it, the Lakeshore, whatever you call it at that stretch there, by Jameson, at night. But Toronto used to shut down at night too. Get away with shit like that.
I dedicate my life to this thing. He said that hip hop just a waste of his time, but he was hip hop on 20% of the time. Yes, he's non-stop, 80% of the grind till it's hard stop. Can't blame him for trying. He said that hip hop just a waste of his time, but he was hip hop on 20% of the time. Yes, he's non-stop, 80% of the grind till it's hard stop. Can't blame him for trying. You can't blame me for trying. In the end, I'm just a mental patient, patiently waiting, back and forth pacing, wondering if it's my turn next to see Satan. The world is cold and hell is hot. My whole life is all about not getting caught. Till my heartbeat stop, I myself that rock, making shots. Put my middle finger up, screaming fuck the cops. Yeah, fuck the law. You end up with a busted jaw. For repeating what you saw. My arms reaches longer than the arm of the law. I can reach you in the prison cells, just so you know. You ain't safe in jail, you might as well kill yourself. But then again, we might meet up in hell. But a well, ain't no snitch, go hold me down. I'ma stack paper till I hit the ground. Now how's that sound? There ain't no money in hip hop, but there's plenty of fiends around.
No, if I time this right, this will go out, the sound will kick out, and if I get this started up again, I'll miss the first 2 episodes of Johnny Dollar. I gotta give a fuck.
Yeah. Let's get it. Yeah. You need to relax. I don't need no feedback. I'm trying to put my seat back. Don't worry about that other shit. You'll never get it back. Rise like a phoenix from the ashes. Like instead of never do. Once I was talking, never got a clue. Where the fuck am I now? Who the fuck is you? Riding with my dogs. You just trying to get this money. You can put that on me and keep the artillery.
I'll get it. What is it you don't like about this particular track, bro? You just don't like the fact I told you already that I played it 2 weeks straight because you seem to not like it, and that's the only reason. Oh, this is so interesting. You're such an intriguing hacker. You can't move past the denial of service attack, but you think you're the most intelligent person in the world. Now, I pointed that out, you got mad, and then I guess must have given it thought for a minute and fucked off for an hour.
Yeah.
When I don't mention you, you get mad. What do you want?
Get it, yeah.
You won't fucking fuck off and leave us alone.
You need to relax, I don't need no feedback. I'm trying to put my seat back. Don't worry about that other shit. You'll never get it back.
And I just told you. In about 5 minutes, we're going to lose the audio. All this is going to happen. This is how predictable these guys are. And this is where your money goes to give them subsidized internet, subsidized apartments, all that shit. And they got like a team of like 6 fucking counts for bringing them food and shit.
Finding things, maybe God will notice me if I win. That's what it sounds like. When the pistol sing, mama checking the obituaries, hoping she don't see me. She cry when they talk about her boys. TV wake up some mornings and I don't
the
want
whole video is buffered, so what's happening is they're interfering with the timestamp signal from YouTube. If I unplug this right now, it would stop skipping. It would defeat the purpose.
I just wake up and crushed it.
You fucking hate this song, man. Holy.
I just wake up and crush the day, and the rush to get paid. Tell God to look away. He said, "What do you want to see?" Yeah. I just wake up and crush the day. I just wake up.
Just remember, this idiot's seeking me out and won't fuck off. Just remember that. He insists on everything on this channel being about him.
Yeah, they say home is where the heart is. Back home, I was living heartless. We all hard-headed, trying to prove whose head's the hardest. If thugging was an art, you could consider me an artiste. Most my friends grew up not knowing who their father is. Nothing in their fridge.
He's got about an 8,000 millisecond ping time. You can literally count it off.
Place that had nothing left to give, nothing left to take. There's nothing on the plate, but I'm dreaming of a steak. Everything is stake. I gamble with my life. Either 5 stars or behind bars. Love the
So this, just think, consider the pathology of somebody who the equivalent right now is sitting in the center of a room full of people screaming that he's a pedophile, he doesn't like us saying bad things about him, and not one of us was talking about pedophilia. This is what's happening. And he won't fuck off, and he won't just die, so.
It's how it is, where the fuck I'm from, where the fuck I'm from, where the fuck I'm from, yeah. I just wake up and crush the day. In the rush to get paid, tell the devil he can wait. I got people I'm serve on the way. I just wake up and crush the day. In the rush to get paid.
Well, I'm just leaving it because you seem to be having fun being a DJ.
I just wake up and crush the day. I just wake up and crush the day. In the rush to get paid, tell the devil he can wait. I got people I'ma serve on the way. I just wake up and crush the day. In the rush to get paid, tell brother look away, this ain't what they wanna see. Just wake up and crush the day, yeah.
Keep waving your self-righteously angry pedo hacker flag, bro. Keep it up. Keep it up. The one place these fucking exploits work is here on my box, and will not leave it alone. Will not, cannot bring himself to stay away for more than about 20 minutes at a time. The biggest #1 fan. I'm afraid to log in and check there. I'm afraid to check the analytics. I just hope the fuck that Rogers don't cut him off that $10 a month internet plan these assholes get. Because then his next option will be, what's the next alternative ISP? It's the same one I'm on, which means his IP address, YouTube won't be able to tell the difference that it's not me doing this to my own system. Now, all right, every little possible exploit. The mind of the sex offender.
To adapt, we have to.
The people are going. It's time to panic.
Are doing route A that I described to you, which is basically make the thing safe quickly, chop it all up, mix it all up, and then take it from there, because that enables them to, as I say, make the battery safe quickly and then deal with the chemical and separation issues later, which is not ideal from an economic or necessarily an environmental point of view.
Paul Anderson says that electric vehicles become less environmentally friendly if you don't have the decommissioning and recycling of the batteries built in from the start.
Well, if you were using lead acid,
it looks as if the electrification of our lives will continue to be dependent on lithium. Back in the Atacama Desert, Pablo's confident that the mine will be yielding white gold for Chile for some time to come.
It's really hard to see that something will compete against lithium. Today, you know that there are a lot of developments trying to produce other kind of batteries with sodium, magnesium, and different elements. But at the end of the day, lithium,
7 times
because of the two, characteristics that I already explained to you, I think that will not have a rival, at least in the next 20 years. Actually, and why also? Because the lithium batteries have been solving all the problems that they used to have in the past.
That was Discovery from the BBC, presented by me, Jane Chambers, and produced by Deborah Cowan. If you want to find out more about lithium, go to the program website.
Where the curse just naturally.
This is the 3 horas da manhã em Portugal.
Real estate market, probably think any agent can sell their home. Now, that may be true in this market, but what is also true is when you're doing it, you're probably going to lose tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars on that sale. Frank has the buyers lined up. They're local, they're national, they're international. They're always waiting for one of Frank's properties to go onto the market because they will grab it, and Frank will work with them and work closely with you to see what exactly your needs are. You work with an agent who guarantees to sell your home, you're going to get the most money possible.
Gosto da vista. Perto do coração.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
This is Global News. I'm to in-person learning as COVID-19 cases continue to rise. Global's Brianna Carnegie reports.
Students in Peel Region will be learning remotely these next 4 days following the Easter long weekend. Then next week, they're off for spring break.
There's an opportunity here to really make sure, absolutely sure, that our schools remain safe.
Peel's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Lawrence Lowe, says 2 weeks out of classrooms will help break chains of virus transmission. The NDP's education critic, Maurice Stiles, is not surprised at the move.
The education minister last week absolutely was refusing to, I think, make some tough calls that clearly our public health units are being forced into now.
She says tougher safety measures being promised by Ontario's education minister have still not been put in place. Minister Stephen Lecce is maintaining that schools are safe. Brianna Carnegie, Global News.
The leader of Alberta's opposition NDP is calling for tougher COVID-19 measures from the province's United Conservative government. This comes as variant COVID-19 cases continue to rise there. Rachel Notley says Premier Jason Kenney has done nothing to change course and lives are being lost. Kenney urged Albertans ahead of the Easter long weekend to follow public health measures, but took no other action. Quebec residents appear to be happier with the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines than people in neighboring Ontario. Canadian press reporter Terry Pedwell says that revelation comes from a new survey.
He has said the country will not participate in this summer's Tokyo Olympics to protect its athletes from coronavirus infection. The ministry's news service said the decision was made at a meeting of the North Korean Olympic Committee in late March. Pyongyang's announcement puts an end to South Korean hopes that the postponed games could be a catalyst for progress in deadlocked peace talks. At least 150 people are now known to have died in Indonesia and East Timor after a tropical cyclone.
In Ontario, the city of Humboldt is planning a 25
Cyclone Seroja smashed into the islands of central Indonesia on Monday, causing widespread damage on Flores before moving on to Timor, the east of which is independent from Indonesia. A high-profile Cuban artist, Luis Manuel Otero Alcantara, has been detained by the security forces outside the headquarters of a dissident arts group, the San Isidro movement in the capital Havana. Will Grant reports.
For at least a day, members of the San Isidro dissident movement have called for the authorities in Cuba to explain the whereabouts of Luis Manuel Otero Alcantara. His supporters say they believe he was detained by state
of how to help feed their community. Danielle Froese says she and others were inspired to open a community fridge after seeing one in Calgary. The emergency room nurse says the fridge is stocked through donated groceries and it's for people to come and take what they need, no questions asked.
Normal thing in the city. I want every community to have a free fridge. It doesn't matter if you're in North Central or if you're living in Gardner. There are people around you that like food.
So these are the geniuses that can't get
Regina's community fridge is one of only many that opened across Canada during the pandemic. Toronto has at least 7 free fridges, and an organizer there believes they are here to stay. In sports, 3 games in the NHL's North Division tonight. The Vancouver Canucks still on.
They really think they're part of the economy.
News from the BBC. The governor of the U.S. state of Arkansas has vetoed a bill that would have made the state the first in the country to prevent doctors from providing certain types of medical care to transgender youths. Asa Hutchinson said the bill represented too much interference by the state in the private affairs of transgender children and their families. At least 16 other states are considering similar bans. A report by the World Bank has estimated that Africa needs about $12 billion to buy and distribute enough coronavirus vaccines to interrupt transmission of the virus. A paper written with the International Monetary Fund also argues that G20 countries should extend their moratorium on debt repayments.
These groups are thriving on Facebook despite the so-called ban. New outside report finds Facebook has allowed groups many tied to QAnon, Boogaloo, and militia movements to glorify violence during the 2020 election and the weeks leading up to the deadly riots on the U.S. Capitol in January. A non-profit advocacy group says it seeks to protect democracies from misinformation. It identified more than 260 pages and groups on Facebook that it says spread violence, glorifying material in the heat of the 2020 U.S. election. To a combined following of 32 million users will get a sense of the impact on Canada, if there is any. Right now with Jesse Miller, a social media specialist and the head of Mediated Reality. Jesse Miller, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me as always, Charles.
As Canadians, do we need to care about this?
Oh, very much so. Across Canada for the past 4 years, we started to see more and more rises of concerning far-right misinformation, valued social media posts. We're starting to see fringe groups of political groups that start to arise. But what's interesting about this nonprofit group that really does focus on misinformation on social media, they're known as AVAZ. They found that there's 267 groups with a combined following of 32 million followers spreading content that basically champion violence. And so to your introduction, the Boogaloo Boys, QAnon, these far-right extreme groups that really do find places in open social media to come together. Yes, Facebook is taking down some of it, but they don't take down the individuals who are subscribing to it, and that's a big concern.
At the same time,
tell me more about QAnon. People hear that name and they wonder, what's that about? I mean, they sometimes, people say, well, it's a conspiracy that says that certain people are part of a huge pedophile ring, but you study this stuff every day, Jesse Miller. What is QAnon?
Yeah, so QAnon is a disproven far-right conspiracy theory. Basically, they allege that there's a secret cabal of Satan-worshipping, baby-eating pedophiles that are all basically running a global sex trafficking ring. And the rise of it did start around 2016 with the introduction of President Trump and highlighting these kind of themes around the Clintons and elites.
Come from the people saying this isn't real.
Tipping point was,
I've never heard any of this except from these people who keep telling me over and over this cult of it. You keep telling us it exists and it spreads on us, and apparently you're the only ones reading
to these individuals. Now, here's the thing: every conspiracy gets some legs based on factual information. And so we learn from the Jeffrey Epstein trial. We've learned about some of the individuals who are in power, who do prey on individuals. There are these individuals who should be highlighted in profile. But it doesn't mean that there's a huge buy-in from all people in politics, all people who are billionaires, the George Soroses of the world, to basically reconstruct what we're doing as a society. But here's the thing, QAnon believes that there are messages that come across in themes. So even after President Trump lost the American election, QAnon believers basically believe that he was doing it for the pomp and circumstance of letting Biden take the reins, but he's still running everything behind the scenes. So for QAnon believers to find content on open social media, whether it be Twitter or Facebook, we saw with the 2020 election that there was a onus on social media platforms to really recognize how this could shape aspects of democracy. What we saw with the storming of the Capitol were a number of these groups underneath one big tent coming together, believing that if they did meet at the Capitol and took over, that the Biden presidency would not start.
So we keep being told that there are people who are very vulnerable to joining organizations like QAnon.
Oh, they're vulnerable.
But I'm thinking, vulnerable, I mean,
now it's a group in an organization. Wow.
How messed up do you have to be? How scrambled do you have to be to buy into the idea that millions of people who, because they're not right of center, are having sex with and eating babies. I mean, it sounds like the kind of thing
he
that
didn't say raping. He said
nobody
having
could
sex
possibly believe, and yet millions do.
Yeah, and there's a valid point to that. I don't want to dismiss somebody who believes in Area 51 or the Kennedy assassination and government oversight of that, because what we do here is when we take
the one is a place that exists, the other is a thing that happens.
We actually polarize people more, and the hard thing is that you can't argue with somebody who is subscribing to the belief that there are tunnels underneath buildings like the Capitol that are running children around. But there are so many little intertwined pieces here that do give credence to individuals who want to believe it. Not necessarily that they're off kilter, but they are looking for something to align to. Now, in some parts of academia, we align this to the way that people fall for maybe far right religion, and within that, we can say we have our large groups of religious bodies that people subscribe to, and they have faith, and we respect that. But at the same time, we can see the far parts of cults, and those that need to be part of a cult. And how does that adherence to a faith or to a religious group become something that we then dismiss because we say, well, that seems like not the right religion to be part of. So QAnon right now is actually in a spot where it could just dissolve and disappear, but the majority of academia do not believe. We actually might see it actually become more polarized and finding more places. And so with the Boogaloo Boys, they very much subscribe to the want of a second civil war in the United States.
In the mainstream media, and they were spitting out what they were hearing from QAnon as well.
The idea that they are standing up for the freedoms that were given to them by their forefathers.
The same people now telling us it's not real. It's the same people who told us this existed.
Now not really existing. We see the extremes, the anti-vaxxers, the masks are part of, the global syndicate. Or at the end of the day, even people comparing provincial health orders to what people went through in the Holocaust. Just these far extremes to make you believe
it was only 6 million and they were all Jews,
bro. A bigger picture.
Yeah, there's 12 million.
Now, the mainstream traffics in very little of this. Is this damaging the mainstream media just purely in terms of numbers? Are they losing large swaths of audience to the Facebook pages and the other pages that traffic in this stuff?
Yes and no. So Facebook itself, this is why we're looking at the concern here today, is because Facebook did put in a kind of edict saying they were going to address the issue. And to be fair to Facebook, they did. They did really recognize how their platform was weaponized in the 2016 American election. And they used the Canadian 2019 election as a testing ground to see if the stopgaps that they had put in were going to limit interference by social media by foreign actors in the American election. But what they really failed to do was recognize this domestic upheaval, and whether it's the MAGA approach or whether it's the QAnon approach, which are again kind of intertwined because it's all Big Tent. Even in Canada, where we recently saw this past weekend with the Conservative Convention, there are parts of that are starting to get more and more intertwined with, the Conservative Party has to remove a member because they shared a QAnon post, or they were subscribing, and they're not blatantly saying we're so far removed from this because you might lose a voting block. So interestingly enough, when we see, these uptakes of people subscribing and believing to it, there are concerns in mainstream media if you talk about it. The reality of it is that all of these things online, whether they be a conspiracy theory, whether they be a group, they're going to find each other in different places. So when Parler was brought down, they then went to Gab, and then Gab was already a platform where you could kind of, espouse these far radical beliefs of baby eating, and it was okay. It wasn't moderated. Whereas on Facebook, even now when you see anything about vaccinations or the mRNA or whatever it be, and it says fact checkers have highlighted that this is not factual and here's what you should read, people who are subscribing to the far extreme are saying, no, the fact checkers, well, those are people paid off by George Soros, so I shouldn't pay attention to it in the first place.
This is the best of Charles Adler Tonight.
How has business for you changed in the last year, even the last few months? Has your message kept up with these changes? Course Creative Services can help you reach.
Really, because your commercial sounds horrible.
Nice, take back so that they can bully their neighbors and control the resources, and ultimately, like I say, decide who flies and sails in that area, and that'll allow them to have their way.
If you are then the government of the Philippines, you're in a pretty difficult position given China's
economic, military, geopolitical might. So what can you do?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. You know, the Philippines, it's important to remember, are a treaty ally of the United States. And the United States has made clear that aggression toward the Philippines would be considered a aggression against a treaty ally. And yet you have President Duterte in the Philippines who's cozied up to Beijing, but he's learning the hard way. It's not going to go very well for weaker countries like the Philippines, and he's starting to perhaps rediscover the value of his alliance with the United States. You know, a lot of this is being portrayed as Philippines versus China or the United States versus China. I would really urge your listeners to consider otherwise. This is really China against the rule of law. This is China against the international community. Do we or do we not stand for the rule of law and the right to sail and fly where international law permits? Or do we stand for might makes right? China is undertaking the most significant military modernization effort in the history of the People's Republic of China. As the Chinese military becomes more powerful, they're acting more aggressively.
The irony, of course, that this approach, we're more powerful than you, so do what we say, is exactly what the US has been accused of. And I wonder what America's strategic interests are here.
You know, the U.S. has been accused of many things, some fair, some not. At our best, we stand for interests and principles that all free people aspire to. At our worst, we've been somewhat of a bully. This is one of the most important economic thoroughfares in the world. If China is successful in taking these little rock outcroppings and building them into islands and then putting them with military runways and hangars and missiles and radars on them, as they've done, you know, contrary to the commitments of President Xi years ago, then what they're going to do is they're going to eventually come to the point where instead of saying, hey, the U.S., we don't like your military vessels sailing through these international waters, they're going to say, if you do that again, we're going to sink your vessel. And then they'll have the power to back that up. Then at that point, they will know that the United States could not come to the aid of the free people of Taiwan. They will know that we cannot stand with Japan in defending them in the Senkakus. They will know all these things. Beijing will start to think that, hey, you know what, maybe we can achieve our political objectives with military force. Right now, they're not sure.
So big implications there, as you can hear from Bradley Bowman, Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies.
16 minutes past the hour. Here's James Gregg with the sport. James.
Thank you very much. Two more matches in the Premier League on Monday night. The race for the top four is now very interesting. West Ham are up to fourth. That was after a 3-2 win away at
Don't miss the Pinpoint Health Show with Dr. Lou every Saturday morning at 11. And for answers anytime, call 1-855-55-DR-LOU or pinpointhealth.ca.
Subway Restaurants introduces new potato bun sidekicks. Soft buns made with Canadian potatoes, stacked with quality ingredients. Try all 4 mouth-watering varieties. Honey mustard ham, savory turkey ranch, Italian aioli, and chipotle chicken. Starting at time. New potato bun sidekicks.
Consume in your building by 50, 60, 70%. Then it becomes much easier and possible to meet that energy demand with renewable energy.
There's 100 million kids that are homeless in the world, you know that, right?
Which is what we need to do. I'm sure it was the same thing when the first houses had to be plumbed and have electricity. Oh, this is a stupid idea. You're never going to be able to. It's too expensive, you know, right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's just
it doesn't even make sense. Again, people living these weird. You know. If you have to say after you tell me it, I still don't know.
Political sphere. Now, Jesse, you mentioned the recent Conservative Policy Convention, and the big headline out of the convention was that the rank and file, the grassroots, the members refused to endorse a motion that said climate change is reality. They overwhelmingly endorsed it from the Atlantic provinces and from Quebec, but it lost badly in Ontario and in Manitoba at all points west in this country. British Columbia, it was just, it was marginal. It was almost 50-50, but I think they got 51 or 52 points to deny. Here's my question. Is there a connection between the information, if you can call it that, but the posts on this particular topic about climate change? Is there a connection between climate change denialism, on Facebook and other social media platforms. Is there a connection between that and what happened at that policy convention where the rank and file did not vote the way the leadership wanted it to?
So anecdotally, I could say yes. I'd have to look and see what the grassroots documents actually were proposing as a policy shift. But you and I both know, I mean, I love the fact that Quebec and the Atlantic provinces were overwhelmingly kind of highlighting, saying, hey, we've got our winners here, we've got the things that we deal with. But the reality of it is that anybody, and this goes to our previous conversation as well, anybody who right now is falling to these ideas of dismissiveness, not looking for the middle ground, is very prone to believing things that they only see on social media and searching for factual information that appeases their bias. So what's interesting is that we were earlier talking about QAnon. When we see people who traditionally identify as conservative and they're falling further and further down this rabbit hole, anything that is reflective of social justice, the NHL advocating for Black Lives Matter, you start to see these far extremes of everything is bad and only what I believe is gospel. And so what's really tough to really recognize here is where does social media radicalization occur? And when we see family members feeling like somebody in their family has gone too far extreme, you see the divisiveness and people shutting people out and saying, I just can't deal with them. I'm not even going to talk to them anymore. I'm going to block them on Facebook. But that's not the answer. You really have to understand why a person is looking this way and what's shifting in their life that's making them more prone to falling into a radicalized space. And the thing is that this isn't new. I mean, we did the same thing after 9/11. What was making people radicalized? What causes somebody to do this? And most of the time, family and friends had an idea, but they never really thought the person would ever do anything. And that's the bigger concern.
What is it about reality in general? This is just a sort of.
You just referenced 9/11. Yeah, all those people had a bunch of people around them. They got radicalized by social media.
So many people react against it almost violently.
That make a lot of sense, dumbass.
Psychologically, I mean, they're angry about reality, and they're angry to the point where many people then choose an alternate reality. What is it about reality? I
remember when CNN said live that they had the hijackers in custody.
Obviously, the COVID pandemic and all the things that we're all struggling to kind of grapple with when it comes to the restrictions, the lockdowns, all of those are playing a role, but we're going to need another couple of years to really analyze the data to see what the past year and a half really has done. But if we look at the past 5 years, social media has played a huge role in any conversation involving anything around the world. And what I find is interesting, and I actually wrote this to some of my students today because they were having a conversation about change, and one mentioned that change is hard. And change is hard. And so what we're seeing right now are these full extremes. And when we see people who are usually very kind of comfortable in their space and they say things in certain ways, when they're held to account and somebody highlights and says, no, what you just said there was racist or insensitive or sexist, the idea that they're being targeted by somebody and they say, well, I don't even know what's right to say anymore. Okay, don't say anything. Listen more. Understand where somebody else is coming from. And if our global economy now is so intertwined in how we absorb media and how we learn things, why aren't we more open to media literacy? Why are we so dismissive of people who spent 30 years researching something and saying, hey, I might have a solution here that could work, as opposed to this person who's researched it for 2 months and thinks they're an expert on Facebook? There is a polarization that's occurring, and social media does play a huge role because everybody now has a soapbox. But you and I mean, we both appreciate media. I can appreciate watching a 6 o'clock news knowing that I went through a vetting process, that somebody was able to present information.
Vetting process? What vetting process is that, bro?
There was a piece of it that was going to be for the benefit of the public good, especially that kind of truncate approach to things. Now, people subscribe to anything on the internet that interests them, and that is showing what actually occurs more and more when we do allow polarization to occur, because people are affirming their bias at every turn just by the click of a mouse.
You say Cronkite, mindful of the fact we must have a lot of people under the age of 50 who are asking, Cronkite, what's Jesse talking about?
Well, hey, I'm 40, and the thing is that as a person who studies media, I always go back to what we've made mistakes with in media and also how it's evolved. And that's the thing, is that social media is so infantile because it is only, 17, 20 years old. We are not really assessing this in the way that we're understanding the long-term effects of what happens when we lose our humanity in that space.
But there was a fellow named Cronkite in the 50s and 60s, and he was called the most trusted man in America. He was the anchor for the CBS Evening News for decades. And when Walter said something, it was perceived as
selling you
the
cigarettes.
truth. It was as close as you could get to, being the voice of God. That was kind of how it was taken. And I think it's fair to say, Jesse, you can correct me on this, please, if I'm wrong, but there are no Walter Crockett's. There is not a single individual that we know of in the English-speaking world whose word is considered gold.
No, and within journalism, that goes to some of the things that we see with that polarization. I do want to highlight something, though. I follow an individual named Corey Doctorow. He's a Canadian-British blogger. Now, the thing is, blogging might not necessarily seem like a thing that's a job, but he's a writer, he's a creator, he's an activist. But the thing is that when I see him post something, I know he cares about when he puts information on the internet. I know that he cares about what he's putting into the world as a journalist.
You've now spent a minute and a half vouching for the guy. What was your fucking
something
point?
Automatically goes to something that they feel a disdain towards. They really don't have an interest in going further. And the thing is that I always try and expose myself to some of the things that I'm not going to feel comfortable with, especially in ideology, so I can learn where somebody's viewpoint is. And that's the key here, is that the more we learn about viewpoints, the more we hear people's histories and stories, we do find those common grounds that show us how connected we are as human beings. We might not share, borders and nations, but we do share a planet. So when I hear the question, why would, 56% of people at the convention vote to basically highlight that climate change isn't real? Maybe there's more to that. Maybe that's the way it was worded. Maybe it was kind of highlighting the effects of an economy in Alberta or Saskatchewan. When you highlight that,
These are people that are trying to sue Disney for making anti-Alberta movies.
And that could be part of where people may have voted just because if you vote this way, things are going to be affected. So more and more people do have to be prepared to have conversations about things that we do get polarized about. But social media isn't to blame. It is the avenue that's allowing the dialogue to happen, but it can be used for so much more to bring us closer together as opposed to further apart.
This is the best of Charles Adler Tonight.
What that meant, that he couldn't leave.
I've lost my mother 2 years ago, so she died unable to see me for 2 years because of this cursed ship.
And his is not the only cursed ship. According to the International Labour Organization, there are more than 250 active cases of seafarer abandonment around the world. Crews simply left to fend for themselves.
The first time I came across one of these cases, I was in total shock.
Andy Bauman is the Middle East and South Asia director for the Mission to Seafarers. From his base in Dubai, he's seen this happen time and time again.
We're currently working with a case here where the company have a huge mortgage on the vessel, but their debts are way beyond that. And so sometimes it is just easier to tell the crew to drop anchor and to almost literally walk away.
The Bahraini owners of Mohammed's ship didn't want to be interviewed for this program. Their hands, they say, are tied. Not good enough, says Mohammed Al-Achedi of the International Transport Workers Federation.
This situation of Mohammed is unjust because the owner, he has abandoned the ship. This is his decision. The court of Egypt has appointed Mohammed as a legal guard of the ship. Mohammed is alone with no water, no electricity, no food. So who has to assume the responsibility?
The court is now considering whether to put someone else on board, and the ship is up for auction. Mohammed could soon be free.
When this is over, what will you do with your life? Will you go back to sea?
Yes, of course. I am a chief mate. I will go back to my old life. I love my job, and I am good at it. Before I came here, I was one step away from becoming captain. This nightmare, I still don't understand how this happened to me.
What an extraordinary story. That is Mohammed Aisha. Very much hoping his nightmare, as he puts it, does come to an end sometime soon. He is just off the coast, south of Suez, has been for the last 4 years. A little later on in the program, we're going to talk to the Egyptian woman
Man,
who
you know what I'd be
blamed
doing with this shit? You got me alone on a ship. You're never just going to sit there because you tell me to?
This is news.
You can't stop me. What's the worst they can do?
Distribution of the PPC phone service in the U.S. is made
that was the whole
possible by
problem he was having.
American
He couldn't
public
legally
media
get off,
with
right?
support from Orca Security.
At 1-800-NEW-CREDIT or apply online at lamina.ca.
Hi, this is Vince Yuluti bringing you exciting news from WeFindYourCar.ca. We are continually growing and need your vehicle. Yes, you heard it here first. We will pay top dollar and give you cash for your car on the spot, even if you don't buy a vehicle from us. Why would we do that, you ask? Because at WeFindYourCar.ca, we are constantly filling car orders for our customers. How do you sell or buy a car from us? Listen to me live this Saturday morning from 10 to 20 a.m. here on Experts Hour.
And listen most to the CBS Radio Network.
Help start the conversation. DrugFreeKidsCanada.org.
You changed your name slightly. I don't know where they get money from. There's some sort of lobbyist.
There are increasing calls from medical officials in Ontario to clamp down to stop COVID-19 variants. Ottawa's chief medical officer is asking the government to issue a province-wide stay-at-home order. Dr. Vera Etches says in a series of tweets, the province isn't dealing with the same virus from last year.
Stay safe and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the wind-swept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest,
It's been racking up around 3,000 COVID cases a day for nearly a week. Over in British Columbia, that province is now at the point where vaccines will be pretty well okayed for everybody. A statement from the Premier's office says all eligible adults will soon be able to book an immunization online. The statement adds the process starts tomorrow and allows those eligible to register and book online, a service that had only been open to residents of
gold discovered in the Yukon, a stampede to the Klondike in the wild race for riches.
So they've got a year to prepare. They're pretending like the internet's some brand new thing they've never used before.
Rice, bringing you the adventures of Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog Yukon King as they meet the challenge of the Yukon. Fellas and girls, it's not too late. If you hurry, you can get in on the greatest offer ever made by the breakfast cereal shot from guns, delicious Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice. There's nothing to send in for. There's no waiting. Listen for full details in just a few minutes. The Yukon snow was in perfect condition for the biggest race in the Klondike area. Indians, Eskimos, French Canadians, men from Alaska, and men from the States began moving into Dawson 3 weeks before the dog sled race that was to decide the championship. There were rich prizes for the driver and owner of the winning dog team.
And as far as world economies are concerned, the one I'm most concerned about next to the Canadian economy, of course, is the American, because if the American economy does well, we can as well. And once again, the reverse of that is true. So right now, the major economic story out of the States is the $2 trillion infrastructure bill that the new President Joe Biden is putting into play. It's hard to get one's eyeballs around or arms around $2 trillion. It's just so much money. But I do want to
20
focus on
trillion,
one
bro.
aspect
It's
of
not that much money.
And one aspect of it is the $174 billion plan, $174 billion with a B, plan to spur the development and adoption of electric vehicles.
You just said that
And
like
that
it was
includes
more
money to
than a
retool
trillion.
factories, boost domestic supplies of materials, It involves tax incentives for people to encourage them to buy electric vehicles, and it also is discussing a infrastructure network of charging stations coast to coast to coast. As many people say, yeah, in the city, not a problem, because we can keep driving the thing for a few hundred clicks on just one charge. What happens when we want to get out on the road?
What would the purpose be of a charging station on the North Coast?
To make sure
you said it like it made sense.
As much access to energy.
The public exams dropped from 46 to 37%.
No roads.
It's the latest blow to an education system that in the eyes of many was already coming apart.
Charging station.
Children in bright blue tracksuits file into Lake McElwain Primary, a small school on the outskirts of the capital. Behind the old chain link fence, several tired-looking classrooms.
They're going to build all this shit. No money. The way we're getting any money out of that infrastructure bill is if we get the contract. Canadian companies get the contract. They won't like us.
Each class has
electric grid charging stations everywhere in the country to make sure that people have no excuse not to think seriously about going electric. I wonder if you could just take some time and think out loud about that.
It still doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it's exciting for anybody who has an interest in what's happening with electric vehicles generally. Obviously, this is an American announcement, but it's leadership that it should be of interest to Canadians as well.
Coast to coast.
I think obviously the scale of what Biden has announced is what catches a lot of people's attention. Just it's not half measures; it's full measures for that. And
because he's going to borrow the money
I think he's basically trying to move. As they say, move the dial, move the needle in a way that's going to be meaningful. And on the charging infrastructure point, I mean, I don't know what 500,000 chargers in the U.S. works out to in terms of what kind of depth of coverage that is, but it's got to be pretty extensive and pretty thick.
Why?
As you know,
how many gas stations are there?
A survey about people's, the public's intention around EVs. Range anxiety, fear of not having enough charging is probably one of the two major sort of impediments. So
education is the best kind of education in the whole of Africa. We probably have got better education that is provided in Europe or the Americas.
During the lockdowns, it'll take much more education that Zimbabweans once enjoyed.
Shingai Nyoka reporting.
Let's head to South Africa now, where new trains are on order from a South African manufacturer as part of a multi-billion-dollar plan to modernize the urban commuter rail transport network. Those trains are badly needed, but there's a problem. Stations and infrastructure left empty because of COVID have been looted. We can speak now to Valani Ludidi, journalist based in Cape Town. First of all, these trains, are they, who uses them? Who benefits most from these trains once they arrive, do you think?
Who benefits from these trains is the working class, people who are working, and it's mostly people from the township, which we call the scholars here. So they've been very affected now because a person has to use double the amount they had to use compared to when they were using a train. Typically, for someone to go to work, they usually use 8 pounds, but now it's double that because they export. It cannot take you straight to work compared to a train, which will take you straight to town and then work. So now it's badly affected. People are already spending a lot more on electricity, on food, and it's difficult now, especially the biggest line, which is not working currently.
He's going to do this so the audio goes over, right?
Much needed then, these new trains, and yet we've seen a lot of the train infrastructure destroyed during the pandemic. Why?
Right? Frog nigger call me fuck shit, right? You don't like
yes,
that, right?
it was looted by people who were desperate to make ends meet, to find food. But also, we must say it was also looted by criminals who saw this as an opportunity to loot while the trains are not moving. There are no wires now. Trains cannot move. So before the trains can move, the government has to first repair the train stations which were looted.
Yeah, I mean, are people surprised at the looting, or is this something almost that has just been accepted?
People are not surprised because it has been happening while trains were actually working. Stations where you would wake up one day that the train is not moving because cables were stolen somewhere, so now the train cannot move today. So you would have to wait for the replacement of the cables. And we must also point that when the COVID-19 started and the trains did not move, the minister here promised kilometers buses to replace trains, but that has not happened at all. So there are no buses now. People have to spend other mode of transport just to get to work.
Sounds like quite a desperate situation. I mean, the People's Train, as it was known, I think was launched a couple of years ago, wasn't it? But it hasn't really got going.
Yes, it was in 2019 when President Cyril Ramaphosa introduced those trains that they would take over. Remember also the trains that we had were old, and there was that big scandal of South Africa buying trains that they could not use because they are taller than the railway station that we have. Those trains were only just presented to the public, but have never actually picked up any commuter and started working. There are only currently now 2 stations lines that are operating in South Africa, and they are the smallest time. So those trains were only presented to the country that these are the new trains that you guys must expect, but we have never seen them working, which is affecting the people who are on the ground.
And this is another state-owned enterprise, isn't it? Presumably the rail system. This seems to be part of a pattern. If you look at electricity, if you look at the national airlines, state-owned businesses in South Africa don't seem to be doing very well.
Yes, the railway is under pressure.
But all the major automakers are, if you look at sort of what they're planning over the next 3 to 5 years, huge amount of, increase in EVs in different models. Which would, again, that's another sort of been another impediment thus far is just, if you wanted to buy an SUV or a pickup truck, they're probably the 2 most popular, numerous vehicles on the road. They're really hard to get an electric until pretty much now, but in 3 years it's going to really change. So we're going to see some changes there. Trucking is interesting. But we're really still just sort of seeing companies kind of just dipping their toe in the water. Canadian Tire, CN, just yesterday or this week, Purolator announced they're going to start putting some electric delivery vans on the road. Yeah. So the railways are going to start running electric trains. Fairly small number. But
fucking stupid.
I think it has to happen quickly, just to kind of get where we need to get.
If you didn't know, it's the most fuel efficient land transport there is.
Sort of, pull back a bit and look more internationally. A lot of countries are sort of setting targets for we won't sell any more combustion vehicles after say.
Like Collie, English Bulldog, and Cocker Spaniel. There are dogs you've maybe never even heard of, like Schnauzer or Saluki, or the Otter Hound, a powerful, web-footed, underwater swimming breed that hunts for fighting otters. The dogs are real dogs. Many are champions of their breed. The photographs in full color are authentic. One of these trading cards is of King himself. Yes, Yukon King, the greatest husky in the North Country. On the back of every card, Sergeant Preston tells you what the dog is like, whether he's a sporting dog like Foxhound, or a working dog like Shetland Sheepdog, or whether the dog is an alert watchdog or learns tricks easily. Don't wait to start collecting these terrific dog picture trading cards. You'll be the envy of everyone. Hurry! Time's a-wasting, and there's only one way to get these cards.
That weird-ass looking dog I see around here can hunt a gazelle.
New packages of Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice. Inside each package, you'll find not one, but 2 of these keen dog picture cards. That's 2 cards, each different. There's no waiting, no delay.
because when we're told about deaths in custody, we don't get that much information. We know that one in New South Wales was an apparent suicide, others were in hospital, and there's obviously been some sort of medical episode. One died during a police pursuit, but the details are really scant. But what's kind of snowballed this into a significant issue is not only that there have been 5 in 5 weeks, but also that we're rapidly approaching next week the 30th anniversary of Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, which has been a landmark document that's really elevated this issue into the public consciousness.
So tell us a little bit more about this. I mean, I have scant details about it, but 339 recommendations on protecting people from that, 30 years ago. What's been done, and is this still seen as a kind of like a touchstone of good practice, or are people now saying it's got to be revisited?
I think it's still seen as a touchstone of good practice, but the concern is that not all these recommendations have been implemented yet. So this was a years-long report. It took years to investigate, and as you said, it had 339 recommendations. When Deloitte looked into this in 2018, they found that only 2/3 of those recommendations had been fully implemented, and a few more had been partially implemented. But there were recommendations that hadn't been implemented at all. So there's a sense that the governments in Australia have really been dragging their feet on this issue, and 3 decades have passed, and we're still seeing
the judge saying, "Oh, I have to consider such and such," and I have.
So that's particularly poignant. One of the deaths that we had recently in New South Wales in
completely useless.
I think that tells us something.
Oh, 2/3 of them have been implemented.
Industry is going.
Based on what? Ask the people actually getting arrested.
Tonight.
You've been denied your.
One of the recommendations is
way besides shooting. There isn't any other way. I thought it all out. You do anything to slow him up or turn his dogs aside, he'll see you unreported. Well, he was found shot, especially with a mount. Who said anything about it being found? Shoot him, knock him off his sled, and pick up the body and take to that check we used a couple of weeks ago. I'll join you there after I collect the prize. No one will ever find Martin's remains, so no one will ever know what happened to him. Now, those your orders. Trivia? Sure would be tough luck if we were to shoot him only to have someone else ahead of him for first place. Now, listen, Penny. I've studied every team in the race. There's only one outfit can beat me. That's young Martin's. You get rid of him, and I guarantee I'll have first prize money in my pocket when I meet you at the shack. You better start right now. Get set at the
kill that guy, and I'll show up with a couple $100.
Watch for the leading team on.
1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Covering that story for the Australian Associated Press, and the story, sadly, I mean, as you mentioned there, 5 deaths of Indigenous people in custody or because of police contact. 5 deaths in the past 5 weeks.
You're listening to News Day from the BBC World Service with Lawrence and James. Let me give you a reminder of our main stories. The police chief in the US city of Minneapolis has told the trial of the white officer accused of murdering George Floyd that his actions deviated from the policy and values of the force.
Knowing that a homicide has occurred,
that it will not take part in this year's Tokyo Olympics due to the
they won't
pandemic.
address that.
A high-profile Cuban artist is being detained by the authorities with a growing confrontation between dissidents and the government, and a priest from Haiti and 3 other churchgoers who were kidnapped during a live stream service have been freed.
In about 5 minutes or so, Alan Kasuja will be talking about NSARS 6 months on, but now it's time for the sport. Here's James Craig.
ButlerMortgage.ca now.
License number 1.
Yeah.
I'd rather wait until after the start, but you two better get over the starting line. I think Dick Martin would want you there to see him.
Yes, of course. Come on, Nancy. We'll be watching for you, Sergeant Preston.
Indeed we shall.
What's the matter, King? I guess we got going? Line, boy. Line. Line the theme, King. The starting gun, they're underway. Now, King, we can go. All right. Run, King. Run, you have to. When Sergeant Preston reached the starting line, the other Dome teams were well underway. King seemed to know what was expected. He led his mates at a fast pace across the icy crust and quickly overtook and passed the rearmost sleds. At the first turn to the left, he was just behind an Eskimo driver. He heard the sharp cries of command from the driver ahead. Then Sergeant Preston's ringing cry, "Parking! Off!" King made the turn and then heard his master cry,
"That's it, King! All right, boy, all right, go ahead!"
King came abreast the Eskimo driver, then passed the sled and dogs and went ahead.
"That's it, boy, now let's pass the next one. Go ahead, King!"
A big French Canadian was just ahead. King heard him shouting the typical command for a right turn. Then a moment later, Sergeant Preston cried out,
"Gee, King! That's it, boy, gee!"
King cut down the distance to the next sled, went ahead, and then increased his speed to overtake and pass the others. At the halfway mark, the weaker teams began to falter and drop back, despite the cries of encouragement from the driver. Then King saw that just 2 teams raced between him and the lead. Scar Lafferty's team was running strong. Once more, King increased the pace. In the meantime, Penny and a man called Jules were waiting behind big boulders 1 mile from the finish.
How much longer do you think we must wait? It's hard to say. I figure we can look for the leading dog team to show up within the next half hour. You will fire the shot, eh? Yeah. And 1 shot's got to do the trick. We must watch carefully, make no mistake. All we've got to do is make sure that the white Siberian husky is not in the lead before we fire. Keep a sharp watch, Jules. When the first team comes around the bend, see what kind of dog is in the lead. Oui, monsieur. I watch.
King was right alongside the lead dog in Scar Lafferty's team. It was a white dog with a black head. A smaller dog than King, a breed generally conceded to be faster than the heavily built Malamute. As he forged ahead, he heard words of encouragement.
"That's it, King, that does it, boy!"
Hey, you're Sergeant Preston. What are you doing in the race?
Well, you're at the finish line. Come on, King! 1 more sled to pass.
Hey, you've got no business in this race. You didn't enter it. What are you doing here?
On, King!
1 more sled to pass. King saw it 50 yards ahead, and he saw the Malamute that led, a big dog like himself. In fact, one of his best friends, Dick Martin's Tundra.
That's the team we want to beat. I'll let him out, King. Come on, King! On, you Huskies!
On, you Huskies! Those were the familiar words that called for every ounce of King's great strength. The spirit of competition burned in his mighty breast. His great muscles rippled smoothly beneath his furry coat.
On, King! On, you Huskies!
There were bells on Tundra and his teammates. King heard them jingling. The jingling came nearer, ever nearer.
You can do it, fellas, a little faster. Hold there! At the pace, King! On, you Huskies! Come on, Tundra!
King knew he had to beat his friend, Big Tundra. It was a matter of personal pride as well as a command from Sergeant Preston.
On, King! On, you Huskies!
Dave looked back, and his eyes went wide in surprise when he recognized Sergeant Preston. King was even with the wheel dogs on the other sled. And then he came alongside Martin's wheel pair, then the points. Now he was matching Tundra stride for stride.
Tundra! On, King! On, you Huskies!
Teams were neck and neck for better than 100 yards. And then, inch by inch, King took the lead. The jingling bells began to fade, and Tundra seemed to know he was beaten. The pace King set was more than any other dog could long maintain.
Good boy, King!
Neither the great dog King nor his sergeant, Master Preston, suspected that Penny, with his death-dealing rifle, was waiting, watching for a Malamute behind big boulders 1 mile from the finish line. King knew he was well ahead of Tundra's team and all the other teams. He knew he was on the home stretch, the last leg of the grueling race. Sergeant Preston stood on the runners of the sled. He looked back, but Dick Martin, his nearest competitor, was still out of sight beyond the bend.
You've done it, King, old fella. Now we'll see what happens. This race is over. On, King!
Sergeant Preston felt a blow like that of a sledgehammer on the back of his head. He fell forward, buckling over the back of his sled. His fingers clutched the rawhide lacing and hung on while consciousness expired. Dick Martin was too far back to know that anything had happened. But King knew. He heard the shot in Preston's gasp. He knew instinctively that something had hurt his master. The Mountie's final words, "On, King," still rang in the great dog's ears. A last command. So the mighty husky fought down the impulse to charge the man who had fired the shot. He held his place at the head of the team and raced on toward the finish line.
Here comes the first one. Look at the lead he's got. Who is it?
Everyone in town was waiting at the finish. Nancy and her father were among the crowd.
Sid, whose team is that?
I can't tell yet. I can't see much of the driver. He's hunched over.
The lead dog is a Malamute.
It's Sergeant Preston. That's his dog.
It's King. And there's the second team, Sid.
Dick Martin's in second place. Hey, something's wrong with Sergeant Preston. He's fallen over the back of his sled. He's not moving.
The crowd pressed close as King crossed the finish line. Sedgwick lifted the unconscious Mountie and placed him on the sled, while King whimpered in concern.
Look at this, Sid. A bullet hole in the hood of his partner.
Well, push your hood back, Nancy. Let's see how badly he's hit. He's regaining consciousness.
Thank goodness he's alive. There. Now we can see the wound.
Oh, my head.
Now, take it easy, Sergeant Preston. I think you're going to be all right. I can tell for sure in just a minute. Let me see the wound, Sedgwick.
I remember a rifle shot.
How does it look, Dad?
No, just brushed the skin. You missed being killed by about 1/4 of an inch, Sergeant.
Oh, King, hear that, boy? Now stop it, fella. I'm going to be all right.
Now, don't try to get up yet, Sergeant Preston.
I guess I'll have to wait a while.
Have you any idea who shot you?
No, I haven't. Dick Martin.
He's just crossing the finish line. You won the race.
Hey, what's the matter? What's happened to Sergeant Preston?
Dick, he's been shot.
What? Who did it? How did it happen?
I don't know, Doc. King, what's the matter with you, fella? Quiet down now. I'll be all right.
Yeah, what is that dog?
You seem to be trying to tell me something. Stop tugging, King. I'll get up in a few minutes.
You're not getting up for some time. We're going to take you to my house.
King tugged and tugged on Sergeant Preston's parka, trying desperately to tell his master that he knew where the ambushers might be found. But no one, it seemed, understood what the mighty dog was trying to say. No one except King's friend, Tundra.
Tundra, what's the matter with you?
Whatever ails King must be contained.
Now let go, fella, let go. Stop trying to drag me away from there.
Tundra would not be sidetracked. He tugged at Dick's clothing, and then tugged some more. Finally, Sergeant Preston understood. Dick, Tundra's trying to tell you to follow King in my place.
Is that it? Is that it, Tundra?
Go on, King. You'll be followed. Show the way, boy. On, King.
Go on, Tundra. Follow King. I'll be with you, boy. Me too. I'm going along. Hey, here. You may need help to get that ambusher. I need to help.
A number of men joined Dick, who followed King and Tundra. It was 2 hours later when Dick and Sedgwick returned.
Sergeant, I wish you could have seen the fun. King blazed the trail right enough. He showed us where the men had waited in ambush behind a couple of big boulders. Then followed their trail to a shack not far away.
You got them?
We sure did. It was Jules and Penny. They tried to put up a fight, but they didn't have a chance with King and Tundra leading the attack. He told everything, Sergeant. They didn't mean to shoot you. They intended to get me.
Oh?
They thought I'd be in the lead.
But why do they want to shoot you?
So their pal, Scar Lafferty, could win the race. He put them up to it. Yeah, we got him, too. 3 of them are in the calaboose.
About that race, Dick.
It's all right, Sergeant Preston. You beat me fair and square.
Dick, you're laughing about it.
I'm pleased about it, honey. I've always dreaded what would happen if I got beaten. I figured everyone would turn against me because I lost their bets, but no one did. Everyone says Dick made a darn good run and deserves a lot of credit. I was a fool to think as I did. I guess a man that's afraid of losing doesn't deserve to win. Well, at least the men in town know I didn't sell out to Scar Lafferty. Congratulations, Sergeant Preston.
Dick, you won that race.
Like fun.
I wasn't even at it. I can't take the prize. When the excitement of catching those crooks dies down, the judges will make the official announcement. You'll be declared the winner.
You mean that? You're sure of it?
Quite.
Oh, then with that prize money, well, gosh, Nancy, you and I, we can be married. That is, if you'll still have me.
I wouldn't want to quit her, Dick. You're no quitter.
Oh, gee. Golly, Sergeant, this is the biggest day in my life. I not only won the race, but I learned that it won't be the end of everything when the time comes that I'm beaten.
You learned a lot, Dick. We'll take up the matter of the ambushes tomorrow morning, but your case, this case, is closed. just a moment, Sergeant Preston will give you a preview of Friday's adventure. Don't wait. Don't put it off. But hurry. Start collecting a
prison break in Owerri with 1,800 inmates escaping, believe it or not.
Where?
General security concerns across the country coming up shortly.
And about 30 of them deciding not to escape, which is just as interesting as part of the story. Also coming up, top story for us in the next hour of the program. If you can stay with us, floods and landslides in Indonesia and East Timor. More than 100 dead. We'll be catching up with someone on the ground there who can tell us what's happening from past half 9. All that coming up. This is James and Lawrence, BBC World Service News. Stay tuned if you can. News update.
Grocer Wally.
With great rates on 2021 Subaru Forester.
This channel powered by KCRW.
That is. Start today. These radio dramas, a feature of the Challenge of the Yukon Incorporated, are created and produced by George W. Trendo, directed by Fred Flowerday, and supervised by Charles D. Livingston. The part of Sergeant Preston is played by Paul Sutton. They are brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the same time by Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice, the breakfast cereal shot from guns. Listen Friday when Sergeant Preston and Yukon King meet the challenge of the Yukon in the case Adventure in Selkirk.
King and I arrived in Selkirk just after the bank was robbed. The constable was out of town, so with little to go on, we set out to trail the crooks. It turned out to be almost entirely up to King to find them. And when he did, it led us both into a mighty trying moment.
Be sure to hear this exciting adventure Friday. This is J. Michael wishing you goodbye, good luck, and good health from Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice. So long.
Cite rising cases of COVID variants, the hospitalization of younger patients, and high intensive care unit occupancy as reasons justifying more restrictions. The province has a record high 494 patients in ICU. There are concerns the recent rise of COVID-19 and variant cases is putting renewed strain on the healthcare system and frontline workers. A new survey suggests seniors in Quebec are much happier about their province's vaccine rollout than their neighbors are about how things are going in Ontario.
The survey by Leger of the Association for Canadian Studies shows 61% of Quebec respondents reported being satisfied with the province's daily vaccine numbers. That's a slight decrease from when the same question was asked 2 weeks earlier, but higher than the 41% of those in Ontario who said they were satisfied. The survey also found nearly 76% of Quebecers aged 65 to 69 reported being satisfied with the number of vaccines being administered daily in their province. That number was only 27% in Ontario. Tarek Pedro, the Canadian Press.
Only half of tourism businesses in 2 of Canada's most popular destinations expect this summer to be as good or better than the first summer of COVID-19. The local tourism association for Banff and Lake Louise says businesses in the area are hoping to just get by with continued restrictions on travel and just a fraction of Canadians getting vaccinated so far. Tourism Jasper says it expects tourism businesses there to see small increases in revenue compared.
On Sunday, you wait for none other than Jack Benny. Who? On Sunday, you listen to Jack Benny. Look, fat boy, this is a free country. When Sunday comes around, you listen to what you like, and I listen to what I like. Oh, yeah? Well, have you had enough? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want your teeth kicked in, you better listen to Jack Benny.
It's entertaining.
To provide that positive aspect to going forward.
What about the submarine?
We're really looking forward to this as a next step.
The center is expected.
Yes, sir, it's really... Hey, Mr. Benny, can I go now? Certainly you can go. We don't force anybody to listen to this program. If you want to hear it, we're happy. If you don't want to hear it, it's up to you. Don, untie him. Go ahead. Okay. There you are. You can go now. Take the anchor off my foot, too. Oh, get out of here. Who was that guy, Jack? I don't know. He told me he was a talking horse, so I thought it'd be a novelty on the program. Anyway, Don, now that he's gone, these boys have waited long enough to be entertained. So let's start out with that joke I wrote. Oh, you mean the one about the soldier on leave? Yeah, this will kill them. I mean, it's made to order for these guys, you know? Oh, really? They love it. Okay, here goes. Say, Don, what's the difference between a soldier on leave and a flea on a cat's stomach? I don't know, Jack. What is the difference between a soldier on leave and a flea on a cat's stomach? One's on furlough and the other's on low fur. Oh, Betty, if you were any sharper, you'd cut yourself. Great gag, isn't it, Don? It certainly is, Jack. Yeah, it's a shame to tell that clever stuff so early in the program. But we might as well start off with a bang. It helps see. Oh, hello, Mary.
Hello, Jack. Hiya, fellas. Say, Jack.
What?
As I walked in, I saw a fella come out of here, and he looked like he lost an argument with a Sherman tank.
Oh, that was some wise guy, Mr. Fitch or somebody, interrupted the start of the program. So Don beat him up.
Don beat him up?
Yeah. I thought I'd never get to tell that gag about the furlough and the low fur.
Jack, did you tell that joke here?
Yes, why?
Don beat up the wrong guy.
What are you talking about? When I pulled that gag, these boys screamed at it.
I know, Jack, but when they pull a hair out at the same time, that's not good.
Well, maybe you're right. Anyway, if you want to know something, I was tricked into telling that furlough joke. I didn't even write it.
And where'd you get it?
I have a lend-lease agreement with Fred Allen. Imagine him sending me a lousy gag like that after the gem I sent him. Gem? Yeah, listen to this, Don. Here's the one I sent Allen. Allen says to Jimmy Wallington, "Say, Jimmy, why does a corporal have such a tough time in the Army?" And Jimmy says, "I don't know, Fred." Then Allen says, "A corporal has such a tough time in the Army because he already has 2 stripes against him." Listen to the audience razzing Allen. It serves him right.
Jack, let me get this straight. You told Alan's joke here on the West Coast, and Alan is going to tell your joke on the East Coast?
Yeah, what about it?
I'd hate to be in Kansas City, trapped in the middle.
Mary, if you don't appreciate good comedy, then there's no use. Come in. Hello, Mr. Benny. Here I am again. Look, we untied you, so you... Say, what are you doing in that uniform? I just enlisted in the Army. You did? Yeah, if you're a civilian, I want to be on the other side. What a smart. I bet he won't last in the Army 2 hours.
Well, I hope he isn't the guy that's going to drive us back in that Jeep tonight.
Are we going back in one of those things?
Yeah, why?
Well, that's the way they brought me here. I was sitting in the back seat, and every time we hit a bump, oh, brother.
What do you mean? What do you mean, old brother?
Don, for years, the slogan was, the Army travels on its stomach. And then somebody invented the Jeep. Well, if we're going back in the Jeep, I better have Rochester bring my overcoat. I'll call my hotel. He must be in my room packing.
Hello, Hotel Benton.
Operator, this is Jack Benny. Give me my room.
Very well. Shall I wrap it up or will you in here?
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I used to be a waitress at the Brass Duck.
Oh, well, get me my room. It's 425.
Yes, sir. I liked working at the Brass Duck, but I got fired for dancing with a customer.
That's too bad. Now, will you please get me my room?
We were jitterbugging, and boy, can he jitterbug.
Miss, all I want is my room. Now, will you please get it for me? It's 4...
Bad enough I got fired, but the boss accused me of stealing.
Look, miss.
Was it my fault if my foot got stuck in a cuspidor?
Now, wait a minute. I don't care
anything about your job at the Brass Duck. All I want
Hey, you sound like the guy I danced with. What did you do with my lipstick?
Now, hold on a minute. You got the wrong party.
Oh, well, then I'm sorry I bothered you. Goodbye.
Miss, hello. How do you like that? She hung up. Oh, well, I'll call later. That was Dark Eyes played by the orchestra. And now, Hey, wait a minute, Jackson. Don't give me no brush, y'all. Tell them whose orchestra. What? Well, let me have a little billing. Tell these soldiers here's whose band that is. Phil, I don't have to tell them. When they see 18 men wearing overalls, no shoes, and fatigued faces, they know whose band it is, believe me. Well, I don't care about the band. I'm talking about me. You didn't give me no introduction. Introduction? Yeah, me, Phil Harris, the kid with $1 million personality. Huh? And 175 pounds of glamour. Well, I'm sorry I didn't introduce you, Phil. No wonder I got an inferiority complex. Inferiority complex? You're about as shy as a hand grenade. And not only...
Oh, Jack, why don't you leave Phil alone? It isn't his fault that he's better looking than you are.
Who said he was better looking than I am? I did. You did, Phil. Do you mean to say that you go around telling people you're better looking than me? No, I don't make no personal issue out of it. I just say I'm better looking than anybody. Oh, now I've heard everything. You know, Phil, you amaze me. You're the only fella I ever met that always talks about himself. Just once in a while, Phil. Once in a while. It's nice to talk about the other fella. Get the idea? Yeah, I think I do, Jackson, and I think you're right. Come on, let's try it. Now, I meet you on the street and you greet me. Okay. Good morning, Phil. Good morning, Jackson. Did you have a good breakfast this morning? Yes, Phil, I had a wonderful breakfast this morning. Well, I'm still better looking than you are. Well, there's no use explaining anything to you.
Say, Jack.
What?
Forget about Phil. If we're going back in that Jeep, you better try and get Rochester again.
Oh, yes. I wanted to bring my overcoat. Mary, you get the number. I don't want to get in another fight with that telephone operator.
Okay.
Drives me nuts anyway. Silly thing.
Oh, Val Benton, will you get me room 425, please? Yes, ma'am, and you can tell Mr. Benny he's a coward. Here, Jack. He's reading your room.
Okay, I'll take it. Oh! Hello, temporary headquarters of Mr. Benny. Dial, stage, screen, radio, and television, whether it's listening or looking, he's open for booking. Rochester, this is Mr. Benny. Hello, boy. Now, Rochester, they're taking us back in the Jeep, and I don't want to catch cold. So will you bring my... But, boss, I saw you put it on when you left this morning. My coat? Oh, I thought you wanted your hair. I wanted my coat. It'll be cold. Then you better take your hair, too. It's got earmuffs. Only when I part it in the middle. Now bring my coat.
Now bring my coat over here right away. But, boss, I got a date besides. You promised me I could have this Sunday off. Sunday off, Sunday off. Look at these soldiers here. They work every day in the week. Yeah, but look at the dough they're getting. They're not getting much more than you are. Well, if you want our household run on a military basis, it's all right with me. It's smart military now. Rochester, you're just making that up. Not the military part. Remember when we were home and you locked me in the guardhouse for 10 days? Yes. What are you laughing at? If you didn't have to come in every morning to wash up, I'd have never got out. Never mind that and bring my overcoat here right away. Okay, General. Goodbye. Goodbye. Oh, that Rochester. Tell you, if he wasn't a private, I'd demote him. And now, in keeping with the spirit of the day, the boys have selected one soldier to represent them on our program. And he's going to sing a song for us. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Private First Class Luther Balliet of the 276th Infantry. What's the number going to be, Luther? I'm going to sing It's a Lovely Way to Spend an Evening. Not in Corvallis. It'll go right ahead. Go right This is a lovely way to spend an evening and think of anything I'd rather This is a lovely way and an evening and think of
There's another musical break.
A casual stroll in the garden, a kiss by a lazy lagoon, catching a breath of
a cliff at the onset of the pandemic, industries dominated by women, service, travel, tourism, events, bled jobs, and many haven't come back. Economist Armin Yalnizyan coined the term she-cession.
I think it is impossible to have a recovery without a she-covery.
She says a different kind of downturn requires a different kind of solution, one that focuses on the so-called caring economy, the often unpaid hours of work, the majority done by women, to take care of children, the elderly, and those unable to look after themselves. Rolling school and daycare shutdowns have erased decades of employment gains for women workers.
Early learning and childcare has to be the centerpiece of the next budget. From the first ever female finance minister of Canada, in the first ever self-declared feminist government of Canada.
The Liberals have promised to create a national childcare system needed to help parents, mostly women, stay or get back into the workforce. Labor market analysts say tools to allow workers to reskill will also help. And human resource experts are calling on Ottawa to create incentives to help employers retain women.
Any types of EAPs, through different types of programs, through wellness programs within the workplace. If employers can be provided with the financial means to...
The previous guy, as he calls him in that interview, are there any other political repercussions that need to be dealt with? Is this something that could come back again, or is this now dead and buried until Trump decides to resurrect it?
Well, I think that's probably the...
Soldiers.
Mary, now will you please?
We all went along because we wanted to see how Jack could take it. We were out with for about a half an hour.
think this is somewhere between 42 and 45, right?
Ah, this is a life. Looks like a good hike.
Yeah, we must have gone about 6 miles and I don't even feel tired. How about you, Jack?
Oh, I feel fine, except that my shoes are beginning to bother me.
Really?
Yeah, I wonder where I left them.
Why, Jack, I didn't even notice you weren't wearing shoes. When did you take them off?
When the horses fell and sent out an SOS. I didn't take my shoes off. They just dropped behind. Here they come now. Oh. Here. Help me out with them, Rochester. Okay.
Hey, you. Benny.
Yes, sir?
Why don't you keep up with the company? This is the third time we've had to come back for you.
Well, I'm sorry, but I got a little tired.
Well, it's your own fault. You shouldn't have tried to march with these young men.
Wait a minute. Are you insinuating that I'm old?
That's what he said. That's what the man said. He said.
Rochester, stop helping him.
All right, let's get going. All right.
Oh, brother. How long is this going to go on?
All right, man. Pull out. Rest period.
Thank heaven, it's about time. Come on, Mary. Let's find a soft spot to sit down.
Okay.
Here's the place. Ah, oh boy, this feels good.
All right, everybody. Up on your feet, man. All right.
Forward pass. Now, wait a minute. Give me a chance to get my breath, will you? I'll run ahead and stop them. Oh, let them go. We can find our way back to camp.
Oh, Jack, let's not turn back. This is fun.
Fun?
Certainly, Jack. We ought to keep hiking a little more. Walking is good for the figure.
It is not good for the figure.
It is, too.
Oh, yeah? Well, there are 10 million soldiers in the American Army who go out on 20-mile hikes every week, and not one of them looks like Lana Turner. Now, let's get back, will you? Come on, follow me, will you, fellas?
We should have stuck with the soldiers, Jack. Now we're lost.
Yeah, I wonder where that trail is. Buried in the jungle or in the middle of coral valleys here. Let's try this direction. That ought to take us somewhere.
Oh, brother, you're faded.
Rochester! Rochester, get up! That's a rattlesnake! Rochester, I told you that's a rattlesnake.
So what? His mind is as good as anybody.
Stop acting so silly. It'll be dark soon, and we won't be...
Oh, look, Jack. There's a soldier over there in that clearing.
Oh, yeah. Hey, soldier! Soldier! Yes, sir? How do we get to Camp Adair? Just take that trail to the left. Thanks. Come on, gang. Hey, everybody, come over here and take a look at this sign. Sign? What does it say? I don't know, but I think it's in English.
Here it is. It says infiltration course. What does that mean? What does that mean, Jack?
I don't know. I guess it's Army talk for shortcut. Let's go through it. Follow me, kids.
Hey, those are bullets.
Yeah, are we being shot at? I don't know, boss. Let's lie down until we talk it over. I wonder who... Down, everybody, down! Flat on your stomach! Wilson, lie down! I am lying down! Well, then stand up. You make less of a target. Hey, this would be the course where they train the soldiers with live ammunition. Rochester, stand up and see where they're firing from. I ain't that curious! Most soldiers don't know we're here. I'll stand up and let them see me.
They saw you. I better stand up and let them see me.
They see you. They see you, Mary. Hey, look, they're waving at us. Hey, there go the soldiers we started out with. They're on the way back to camp. That's not where it's going. Come on, Dad. Come for me.
Jack Benny Show is rebroadcast especially for you soldiers, sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen of the United Nations. Now we turn the remainder of the program over to the Benny Bandmaster, Phil Harris. Music, Phil.
This is a G.I. Jive, man alive. It starts with the bugler blowing reveille over your bed when you arrive. Jack, that's the G.I. Jive. Roodly toot, jump in your suit, make a salute. Booze, then you wash and dress, more or less. You go get your breakfast at a beautiful little cafe they call the Med. Jack, when you convalesce, out of your seat, into the street, make with the feet, reach. Now, if you're a PMC, your duty is to salute the L-I-E-U-T. But if you rush the L-I-E-U-T, the MP makes you KB on the Q-T. This is the G.I. Jive, man alive. They give you a private tank that features a little device called Fluid Drive. Jack, after you revive, chuck all your junk back in your trunk, fall on your bunk, a clunk. This is a G.I. Jive, man alive. They give you a private tank that features a little device called Fluid Drive. Jack, if you survive, chuck all your junk back in your trunk, fall on your bunk, clunk. Soon you're counting G's, but before you count to 5, you'll be right back digging that G.I. Jive.
Group today about security and backup.
WiseTech Group
accused of blocking the Suez Canal, even though she was nowhere nearby. Stay tuned for that. You're listening to Newsday.
They're supposedly tried to find a female ship captain.
Distribution of BBC World Service in the U.S. is supported by T. Rowe Price, committed to helping investors close.
You save thousands. 1 point. Sucks. Let's put it that way. The Vancouver Canucks are probably the best example of easy to observe of what they've gone through. One or two guys got sick. A couple of guys had symptoms. They thought maybe they could isolate and go with it. And their list of players and staff that are affected is very long.
Responsible for a massive prison break in Nigeria.
Fighting the anti-vaxxers with facts in South Africa. We speak to a scientist on a mission.
Also, how to close the gender gap in a place like Jordan.
James Gregg has a full sports bulletin as well. All after the latest.
Spread among people who have been vaccinated.
Hospitals in BC and Alberta are bracing themselves for what could be a devastating spring.
We're now seeing the hospital and the intensive care units are younger people between their 40s and 50s who are having devastating responses to these new variants.
But it's no longer just one new variant driving exponential growth. Last week, a large cluster involving the P1 variant that first emerged in Brazil was identified in the Vancouver coastal region. Many cases linked to an outbreak in the ski town of Whistler, BC. BC Health ordered the ski resort to close as part of new restrictions to control viral spread.
We're seeing the numbers of these P1 variants grow faster than we are for other variants.
The P1 variant first emerged in Brazil in late December 2020. The first Canadian case was confirmed in Toronto on February 7th. BC
Cultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the wind-swept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest, Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice, the breakfast cereal shot from guns, present the challenge.
So China and Russia are basically ready to go to war, and nobody else on the planet
Yukon
is.
King, swiftest and strongest lead dog of the Northwest, blazing the trail for Sergeant Preston of the Northwest Mounted Police in his relentless pursuit of lawbreakers. On King, on the Husky. Gold discovered in the Yukon. A stampede to the Klondike in the wild race for riches. Back to the days of the gold rush. With Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice, bringing you the adventures of Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog, Yukon King, as they meet the challenge of the Yukon.
Jesus Christ, it's a long intro.
Cabinet Committee is scheduled to meet. They will be discussing Alberta's rapidly increasing COVID numbers and whether more restrictions will need to be deployed. Robin?
Heather Yerkes West in Calgary. Thanks, Heather.
Traveling, though, seems to have been popular. I saw an awful lot of people on their Facebook posting their pictures of, coming home today. I don't know where they went. Or maybe they just have a cabin somewhere. I mean, I don't know. If you have your family and you go to a cabin and you go take all your food and you don't really leave the cabin, yes, you're traveling, but to me that seems responsible. Now, if you don't have a cabin and you're going to another place to stay with family when you're not supposed to be inside for the most part in most provinces with other people that aren't in your family, then that's not, doesn't seem to me to be responsible. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it was crazy to watch. I literally saw a video of there's a woman that I know, and her and her fiance had friends over, and they had a party. They're in their 20s, and they had all of their Instagram live stories about their night. And this is incredibly smart person that I have all the respect for, and I don't say her name because it's nobody's business, I guess.
Back to 4th Street. Here, there was only an occasional light, but the sergeant...
It's the same thing as when you tell kids matches are bad, don't play with matches. They wait till the house is empty, they go hide in the closet and play with the matches.
What's going on?
These people didn't post nothing about going away for the weekend, but they're all posting their trip coming back. COVID is bad, so pretend. No one will figure out what we did.
Two men inside the cabin were standing toe-to-toe, slugging it out. But they were arm-weary and winded. When the sergeant pulled them apart, they had no strength to resist.
All right, that's enough. Which one of you is Wainwright?
It's me.
What's your name?
Henry. Mike Henry.
What's this all about?
It's personal.
How'd it start?
There was a knock at the door. I opened it. He walked in and hit me.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Why, Hanley?
Better ask him.
Well, Tex?
I've got nothing to say, Sergeant. It's personal. There's no sense in talking about it.
You were defending yourself?
That's right.
You started it, Hanley?
That's right.
And I'm going to lock you up.
Go ahead. Now, wait, don't, Sergeant. Can we forget about it? You know we can't. I don't want to make any complaint. It's just between us. It's strictly our business.
It's the force's business when you start disturbing the peace. Where do you live, Hanley?
At the palace.
I'll take you back there. You're new in town, Hanley. Must be a long-standing grudge of some sort.
Yeah.
Well, your past doesn't interest me, but there'll be no feuding in the Yukon Territory. Have understood?
Yeah, we understand.
Then come along. As soon as the sergeant and Mike Hanley had left the cabin, Tex washed and put on a clean shirt. 15 minutes later, he walked into the Monte Carlo. Meg Forrest saw him as soon as he stepped inside the door and hurried to his side.
Tex, they say you were in a fight.
Yeah.
With Mike Henry. He's followed you here.
He's here anyway. Sergeant Preston broke it up.
What did you tell the sergeant?
Nothing.
Tex, you should have. If the sergeant knew that Mike has sworn to kill you,
He's sworn to do it with his fist, Meg. He can't. Well, that's all there is to it. There's nothing to worry about.
Tex,
Just the same, I'm going to get on with my business.
you're going up to North Creek?
Yeah. I'll find the old Indian Paul wrote me about just before he died. I'll get the gold Paul left with him, and then I'll come back here. You and I are heading for the States.
What if Mike follows you up to North Creek?
I'll leave tomorrow night, honey. Nobody will know I've gone.
That's easy to say. I wish you told the sergeant and had him locked up.
I couldn't.
Why not?
Because if I was in Mike's place, maybe I'd feel the same way. It's one thing for a joy to say you're innocent, and another...
You were innocent. You were only protecting yourself, and it wasn't your blow that killed Steve Henley.
If I hadn't hit him, he'd never have cracked his head against that rock.
He started it all.
All right, all right. All I said was that I understand the way Mike feels. Let's forget about it. You ready to leave?
I have to sing one more song.
I'll be waiting here, Meg. I'll walk you home.
There was a man standing at the bar close to where Meg and Tex had been talking. He kept his head down and his shoulders hunched over his drink as he listened. His sharp black eyes were narrow to slits. His thin lips twisted in a smile. He waited for a few minutes after Meg had left Tex. Then he made his way through the crowd to one of the rooms in back of the cafe. Inside, there were 5 men seated around a table playing poker.
All right, break it up for a minute. You mean break it up? I just started to win a few parts. I've got news, Ace. Yeah? What about, Blackie? Tex Wainwright and that gold cache his father left him. Come on, let's get back to the game. No, I want to hear. Go on, Blackie. Now, let's see. He stayed around here for a month courting Meg, but he starts for North Creek tomorrow night. Do we follow him or don't we? I'm for it. Yeah, what makes you think we can get away with it? Well, there's 6 of us. Well, he knows us. We'd have to kill him. Well, I don't like that. Neither do I. We left town right after him, we'd be suspected first day. But we wouldn't, Ace. That's why my news is good news. There's a man in town called Mike Hanley from Texas, and he's sworn to kill Tex. How do you know that? I've just been listening to Meg and Tex talk it over. It seems Hanley and Tex had a big fight tonight. Sergeant Preston stopped it. But why does this Hanley want to kill him? Well, from what I can gather, Tex had a fight with another Hanley back in Texas. Steve, his name was. And Steve died as a result of it. Maybe he was Mike's brother, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Wasn't Tex accused of murder? Oh, the jury turned him loose. Self-defense. So what about it? But think, Ace. Tex leaves town. We make sure Mike knows about it. He follows Tex. And we follow Mike. If Mike doesn't finish Tex off, we do. But Mike gets blamed for it, you see? Meg will see to that. She'll tell the Northwest Mounted about the feud. Right? Yeah. That sounds pretty good, Blackie. Yeah. How about the rest of you? Like it? I think it's going to work. Okay. We'll need 3 sleds and supplies, eh? I'll take care of them. I'll see that Hanley's tipped off about Tex leaving town. Well, get on with your game, gents. You'll be playing for bigger stakes tomorrow night.
Right. Blackie informed Mike Hanley of Tex's plans the next morning. That night, Mike Hanley stood at the window of his room in the Palace Hotel. It was after 12 o'clock when he saw Tex Wainwright leave the Monte Carlo. Half an hour later, he was driving up the Klondike, following the fresh tracks of Tex's sled. And half an hour after that, 3 other sleds left Dawson. Blackie, Ace, and company were on the trail of gold.
So far, so good, Ace. You can make this team move faster. No need for it. Give Tex a chance to find his gold. Give Mike a chance to get rid of him for it. Why should we hurry? Better to be too early than too late. Give him a whip. Okay.
March! March! But what Blackie and Ace could not know was that Meg's concern made her inquire for Mike Hanley at the Palace Hotel the following morning. When she learned that he had left town by dog sled shortly after Tex the previous night, she went straight to the Northwest Mounted headquarters and told Sergeant Preston the whole story of the feud between the 2 men.
Mike is bigger than Tex, much stronger. And up there at North Creek with no one to stop him, I know he'll go through with it. He'll kill him.
When did Tex leave?
A little after midnight.
You have a good team?
Yes. And he intended to make the trip as fast as he could. I don't think Mike can catch him before he gets to the creek. But that will be tonight sometime or late this
You spoke of an Indian.
Tom Kusaya. He lives near the head of the creek. Tex has a letter with his mark on it. It's to identify him.
I understand all that.
You'll go after them.
Of course.
Is there any chance?
Not of overtaking them before they get to the creek. But King can make the trip faster than any other lead dog in the Yukon. We may arrive in time to prevent trouble.
In time to save Tex's life, Sergeant. Oh, King, please.
We'll do our best. Come on, boy. We're hitting the trail. In less than 15 minutes, the sergeant's team was harnessed. And because the trails were hard-packed at that time of year, King, who usually worked as a loose lead, was also harnessed. This was enough to make the great dog realize the need for speed. He looked back at his master as he took his place behind the sled. The welcome words came. On King! On speed! And King leaped forward, determined to make the sergeant proud of him, calling on the rest of the team to match his effort. Long way, boy. We've got to make time. On, King! We'll continue our adventure in just a moment. And now, fellas and girls, time marches back. It's the scene of a famous race, the race between the hare and the tortoise. The crowds are in a frenzy of excitement, and so are the hare and the tortoise. They're down at the starting line, talking excitedly.
Hey, Torty, old boy, did you hear about the wonderful prize for the winner?
Yes, indeed. whole year's supply of Quaker Puff wheat and Quaker Puff rice. The famous breakfast cereal shop.
Than anybody else outside their age group in any province that I'm aware of right now. Can you believe that? I can't believe that.
I can't believe it either. And then I heard I was listening on the Ontario news, and they have a pharmacy in the Beaches area. If you bring in a proof of where you work, a teacher, he will do you with the vaccination without an appointment or anything. You just show up and he'll do it because he feels with the problem that's going on, he feels he has to do something. But the thing is, like, I want to travel. My wife is champing at the bit. We want to travel, but I am not getting on an airplane until this thing is over. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, I have family in Ontario. I want to go see them. I can't go.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, traveling is different today because my partner's in Ottawa, right? So we co-parent from a distance, and we I can tell you this now, traveling from province to province, if you're going out to go sightseeing and stay in someone else's house, then that's probably doesn't fit with the travel provincial travel rules. But I can tell you this, Kevin, if you've been to you're from Calgary, so I mean I've been to Cross Iron Mills, I've been to the Costco's around the city. In fact, I was in IKEA today in your city, and I was down at the Costco down by Heritage, that one down there, and I can tell you that it is way less stressful on an airplane and in an airport. It's more stressful at the gate actually than it is on the plane because everyone's wearing masks and everyone follows the rules.
But Shane, I want to ask you a question. What is the difference? Okay, the hairdressers are closed. What is the difference with everybody packing into Costco versus going to get your hair done?
Now to continue. Tex Wainwright reached Tom Keziah's cabin on North Creek at 8 o'clock that evening. He showed the old Indian the last letter he'd received from his father, with Tom's mark below the elder Wainwright's signature.
Tom not need this letter to know you right feller. Your face is like Tom's friend. Yeah, everybody says I look like my father. Those not your dogs. Tom put them in wrong side of cabin. Somebody come. Have many visitors? No. You first man Tom see in months. I wonder. Tom find out who come. Evening. I'm looking for Tex Wainwright. I see I've come to the right place. This friend of yours, Tex? I couldn't very well call him a friend. Mind if I come in, Injun? What you say, Tex? Yeah, let him in. He's come a long way. It's a good place to settle our business. Won't be any mounted police around to interfere. I suppose we might as well settle it. Sooner or later, I've got to make you realize that you can't do what you've sworn to do. But there's no hurry. You must be hungry. I am. Let's have something to eat before we start. As long as it's Indians' food, that suits me. You can feed another traveler, can't you, Tom? Yeah, they have plenty of food. You sit down. Come, put them on the table.
It was a strange meal. Tex talked with Tom about his father, but Mike said nothing. Finally, Tex rose from the table.
Well, I guess we better take off our gun belts and our coats and leave them in here. In here? Yeah. Go outside. No sense in wrecking Tom's cabin. That suits me. What you do, Tex? We've got a little matter to settle with our fists, Tom. You stay in here. After it's over... After it's over, you can bury him. What's that? That's a joke, Tom. After it's over, we'll patch him up and send him on his way. Ready, Mike? Yeah.
Without another word, the two men left the cabin. It was nearly as bright as day outside. There was a moon, and the northern lights streaked across the sky. The tall pines at the edge of the forest and back of the cabin cast great black shadows across the snow. The two men squared off. Mike struck out with a right. Tex parried the blow. The Huskies began to bark. For a few minutes, both Mike and Tex were content to feel each other out. Then Tex stung Mike with a left, and they threw caution to the wind. For the next 5 minutes, they fought savagely. They didn't see the dog team stop down the trail. They didn't see the men advancing toward them along the banks of the creek. It was Tom, watching from the doorway of the cabin, who shouted out a warning.
Hey, those fellas have guns.
A shot rang out and Tex pitched against Mike. Surprised, Mike caught him in his arms.
Bring him inside. What happened? Those killer down trail. Crooks.
Acting by instinct, Mike started for the cabin supporting Tex. Tom opened fire on the men who took cover below the bank of the creek.
Hurry, inside. Yeah. Put him on cot. And go out there.
Steady does it, Tex. Yeah, lie down here. Yeah.
Tex, you see fella shoot you?
Yeah, I recognize one of them. An hombre called Blackie.
Blackie? No good coyotes.
They after the gold, Tom.
Them not get it.
Where you hit, Tex? This side. I'll see what I can do to fix you up. You better get out of here, Mike. Why? It's no concern of yours. Maybe they finish the job for you. I'll finish my own job.
That's a good idea. You leave.
Why? I can shoot.
Tex not able to shoot. There's 6 men out there. You go out back way, in the forest. Not let crooks see you. Go to roadhouse, near Mountain Creek. Bring men back.
Can you hold them off all by yourself?
Yeah, can't do that. You come. Me show way.
Sergeant Preston made a record run to North Creek. He had stopped for a moment at the roadhouse near the mouth of the creek, and the proprietor had told him of the unusual traffic past his place that evening. Not 2 sleds, but 5 had headed up the creek. Now, King was following the broken trail at a ground-devouring pace. He rounded a bend and saw a man running toward him.
Looking. Hello.
King, it's Mike Hanley.
Sergeant Preston, I never thought I'd be glad to see you again.
What's the matter?
There's a bunch of crooks. Tex has been wounded. The engine at the cabin. Crooks got him holed up. Look, you better hurry.
How far is the cabin?
It's the top of the creek. Maybe 3 miles. I ran all the way. I'm winded.
Get on the sled.
Right.
All right.
King stepped up his pace, and the sergeant jumped on the running board. When Mike was able to breathe more easily, he questioned him further.
Who are the men who attacked the cabin? Any idea?
I recognize one of them, named Blackie.
Huh? That explains a lot. Been too much talk about the Wainwright gold. How many men are there altogether?
The Indian said there were 6. I don't know how much ammunition they have in the cabin. I've been gone over half an hour. We'll be back there in less than that, though.
How's it happen you're so anxious to help Tex?
Those sidewinders shot him in the back.
And you'll want to kill him yourself, is that it?
No, not anymore.
What's happened?
I don't know. Tex is a game guy. Then there was something he said in the cabin. Wanted me to clear out. Said Blackie and his gang were after his gold. It was no concern of mine. And then all of a sudden I realized something.
What?
He has no grudge against me in spite of the fact that I've been giving him a hard time. All of a sudden I realized that he was as sorry as I was about what had happened to my brother Steve. Hey, how'd you find out that I wanted to kill Tex?
That doesn't matter as long as you don't.
As King began to bark, the sergeant looked ahead. A red glow was staining the sky.
Fire! Yes. Anywhere near the cabin? Could be. Any way they could set it afire? Blackie and his gang?
There were no windows in the back. Sure. If they cut through the woods, they could have got close enough. Tex and the engine wouldn't have a chance if they had to leave the cabin.
15 minutes later, they stopped in front of the burning cabin. They were greeted by a chorus of barking dogs, but there was no sign of a human being around.
Gone. All of them.
Easy, boy.
What are you doing?
Unharnessing King. They left their dogs in their sleds, and if they've gone into the forest, King can help us track them down. Not that we'll need his help.
No?
Look, footprints. You follow them. Come on, boy.
What do you suppose happened?
The cabin-on player, Tex and Tom Casaya, had to come out and surrender.
Perhaps they were shot as they came through the door.
There's no sign of that. No, Blackie wants Tex's gold, and Tom's the only one who knows where it's cached.
They're forcing him to show them where it is. The point of a gun.
If he does, that'll be the end of both Tom and Tex.
The tracks of the men led deeper and deeper into the forest. King whined impatiently, and the sergeant laid a restraining hand on his harness.
Easy, King. Hold it a second.
What's the matter? They went straight on.
The sergeant was studying the sky through an opening in the trees.
No, not straight, Mike. We haven't been traveling in a straight line.
It seemed that way to me.
Hope it seemed that way to Blackie and the others. Right now, we're heading south.
South? That's towards the mouth of the creek.
Yes, Tom isn't leading them to any cache. He's heading straight for the roadhouse.
When he gets close enough, he'll call for help.
Come on.
The sergeant broke into a run. King ran easily at his side, and Mike followed as closely as he could. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then they heard voices ahead of them. Listen.
Can't go any further. Let's finish them off. We don't need it. You work checks. I'm not sure you what's holding. All right, we'll rest a while.
Good. What's good about it? 2 of us, 6 of them. You wait here, Mike. Going to cut over to the left and circle around in front of them. Give me 5 minutes and then start shooting. What? I can't see him. Just shoot in their general direction. 5 minutes. Quiet, boy. Let's go. Silently, the sergeant and King slipped forward from tree to tree. A few minutes later, they saw the outlaws and their prisoners sprawled on the ground in a small clearing. The sergeant worked his way around to the far side of the clearing, moving with infinite care. Now he was only a few feet away from Tex and the Indian. Mike began to shoot. The outlaws jumped to their feet and ran to the opposite side of the clearing from where the sergeant was standing. He called to Tex. Tex, Tom, quick, come here. Tex saw the sergeant and recognized him.
Sergeant Preston. Come on, Tom.
2 men jumped to their feet and ran toward the sergeant. Ace saw them.
Hey, they're making a break for it.
But before he could shoot, the sergeant fired, and Ace clutched his right arm. With Tex and Tom safely behind him, the sergeant stepped into the clearing.
Put up your hands. You're under arrest in the name of the Queen.
The outlaws knew the sergeant. Not one of them had the nerve to exchange shots with him, and they dropped their guns to the ground. But Blackie, shielded by the others and closest to the trees, made a break for it.
That's Blackie getting away, Sergeant. He's the ringleader.
I'll get him. Grab those guns, Tom. Keep them covered.
Tom, do that. He'll make one move. Me shoot.
Come on, King.
Blackie had a lead of 50 yards on the sergeant and was out of sight when he and King plunged into the forest. But his trail was easily followed. And when the sergeant finally saw him, running as fast as he could, he let go of King's harness with a word of command.
Stop him, boy.
The great dog leaped ahead, but except for a low growl, as silent as a shadow. The glint of metal in Blackie's hand told him he was carrying a gun. And when King had closed the distance between them, he dove for Blackie's feet and tripped him up. Blackie fell face down in the snow and his gun shot out of his hand. The sergeant closed in.
All right, King, I've got him covered.
You never have caught me if it hadn't been for that dog.
Get up.
I can't. I think my leg's broken.
I doubt that. Stand back, King. I'll handle it, boy.
Sergeant holstered his gun and bent over to help Blackie to his feet. There was nothing wrong with the man. As Blackie stood up, he whipped a knife from inside his pocket and struck. But the sergeant caught his wrist, and the blade stopped an inch from his chest. Blackie lashed at him with his left. The sergeant went down with Blackie on top of him, still trying to drive his knife home. King barked his concern, but his master had told him to stand back. The sergeant called in all his strength, and inch by inch, he forced the knife back. Then a quick twist, and the shining blade shot into the undergrowth. Blackie wasn't finished. He leaped to his feet and aimed a vicious kick at the sergeant's face. The sergeant rolled aside just in time, and King could restrain himself no longer. He threw himself at Blackie and knocked him back from the sergeant. The sergeant jumped to his feet.
King, I'll take care of him.
Blackie charged. The sergeant took a right and a left to the jaw, and then, shaking off their numbing effects, charged himself and battered down Blackie's defense. A right and a left, then a right again, a left to the body, and then a final right to the jaw. Blackie's head shot back, and he dropped to the ground. Mike came running through the forest toward the sergeant.
Are you all right?
Yes, Mike. Give me a hand with him.
Right. Mike helped the sergeant carry Blackie back to the clearing, and then the other members of the gang were ordered to build a campfire. By its light, the sergeant put a new dressing on Tex's wound and took care of Ace's arm.
There. That will do until we get you back to Dawson.
How you feeling, Tex? All right, Mike. I'll be ready for our next bout in a week or so. What does that mean? Nothing. Just changed my mind about a few things. Such as what? Well, of course, I had nothing to do with saving your life. King got the sergeant here in time to do that. I just came along for the ride, but... Well, I was in on it in a way. You sure were. You know, it's a funny thing, Tex. You help save a man's life, and you don't feel like killing him anymore. Fact is, now that I've got to know you, I kind of like you. That's good news, Mike. After all, you're a Texan.
And a friend.
How about it, Tex? Suits me. Suits me.
Suits me, too. Well, King, I think we can safely say this case is closed.
Can't be better out.
In just a moment, Sergeant Preston will give you a preview of Friday's adventure.
X-1 or something for us.
1, 2, 3, tasting.
1-800-GOT-JUNK. When you want junk to disappear,
All you have to do is point.
call 1-800-GOT-JUNK or visit us at 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com.
Jeep, you know the name, and if you own one, well, you already know where this is going. But a Jeep isn't like anything else. Never has been. We're different. The square peg in a round hole type. The category creators, the rule makers, the rule breakers. Turn over the engine, and the world becomes your playground. Go anywhere, do anything. So if you're ready for adventure, you'll know where to.
The money paid 4 ways in the doctor's fight against tuberculosis on your family. See if they've bought all the Christmas seals they want. Listen Friday when meet the challenge of the youth in the case of the black bag.
When I found a dying man on the trail to Whitehorse, I took him to an abandoned cabin and sent King into town for help. I didn't suspect that the man who came to treat a pistol wound would bring a black bag holding a time bomb to blow us all to destruction. And then things began to happen fast.
Be sure to hear this exciting adventure Friday.
Time bomb.
These radio dramas, a feature of the
1890s.
Challenge of the Yukon Incorporated, are created and produced by George W. Trendle, directed by Fred Flowerday, and supervised by Charles D. Livingston. The part of Sergeant Preston is played by Paul Sutton. They are brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the same time by Quaker Puff Wheat and Quaker Puff Rice. The breakfast cereal shot from guns. Remember, for delicious hot breakfast, enjoy Quaker Oats. The giant of the cereal is Quaker Oats. Delicious, nutritious, makes you feel ambitious. The giant of the cereals is Quaker.
Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Lawrence Lowe, says 2 weeks out of classrooms will help break chains of virus transmission. The NDP's education critic, Moritz Stiles, is not
I'm David Harper with the BBC News. North Korea has said it will not participate in the Tokyo Olympics, which start in July, dashing hopes that the Games could help to revive peace negotiations with South Korea. Pyongyang said it took the decision last week to protect its athletes from the coronavirus. Laura Bicker reports from Seoul.
The country completely sealed its borders in January last year to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So it's perhaps no surprise that Pyongyang is unwilling to break this countrywide quarantine and send a delegation to Japan in July. In South Korea, there had been hopes by President Moon that the Games would rekindle talks with the North. The two sides, which are officially still at war, entered a joint team at the Winter Olympics in 2018, which led to a number of historic summits between the country's leaders.
At least 150 people are now known to have died in Indonesia and East Timor after Cyclone Saroja hit a number of islands, causing severe flooding and landslides. Dozens more people are missing and thousands have been left homeless.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned the homicide detail. Naval intelligence tells you that 2 Marines have been picked up with the shore patrol. They're reported sick. 1 is in critical condition. Foul play is suspected. Your job? Investigate. Here's what leading tobacco publications have had to say about king-size Chesterfield. U.S. Tobacco Journal.
That they're addictive and cause all sorts of problems.
Have been steadily rising over the last 4 to 6 weeks after a year of excellent control and a very strong public health response. It's
Humboldt's deputy mayor calls the center another
brands being marketed. The reason for king-size Chesterfield's amazing success is this. All king-size cigarettes give you quantity, but only Chesterfield king-size gives you quantity plus quality. Premium quality. That means Chesterfield king-size contains tobaccos of better quality and higher price than any other king-size cigarette. The same prime tobacco as in regular Chesterfield. Enough more of this tobacco to give you over a fifth longer smoke. So remember, Chesterfield is the only cigarette to give you premium quality in both regular and king size. Buy them either way you like them. Chesterfield gives you the best possible smoke.
much milder.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, July 10th. It was hot in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Frank Smith. The boss is Captain Norman. My name's Friday. It was 7:58 a.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide. Morning, Joe. Hi. Just get in? Yeah. Anything in the book? I'm looking. What's the matter? You hacked about something? No. Why do you ask that? I guess you're sorry about something. What do you take, a sour pill? If you keep this up, you won't be asked to post toothpaste ads. That's funny. All right, Joe. Tell your Uncle Dudley what's the matter. Well, it's that court deal yesterday. It was miserable. Thing you and Gaffney been working out? Yeah, the White Glove Bandit came up while you were on vacation. Spent over a month on it. Covered it from every angle. Yeah, it looked like we had the guy any way he turned. We had an idea how much he'd taken on each job. Lee thought he traced him on every move he made on each of the deals. We figured we really had the guy. DA's office thought so, too. That quit him? Yeah. Let him walk right out. 12 men, good and true. Let that cheap hoodlum walk right out on the street a free man. Well, that's where it goes sometimes. Is there Mr. Friday here? Yes, sir. I'm Friday. Is something I can do for you?
Well, I'm Richard Houston, Naval Intelligence. Deputy Chief Brown directed me to you.
I see. With my partner, Frank Smith. Lieutenant Houston. Yes, sir. Like, sit down, sir. What is it we can do for you?
Well, we got a weird one. That's why we thought your department ought to be in on it. About all I can tell you is just the skeleton of the thing. We don't know all the details. We haven't gone into it completely yet. We figured you fellas would like to be in on it from the beginning. Looks like it's going to be a police investigation. Yes, sir. To begin, I should go back 3 weeks ago and tell you the story of yours we've been able to reconstruct it.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Well, a couple of Marines left the base. They'd just gotten back from Korea, both on a 48-hour pass. We figured they came up here to L.A. They had a lot of back pay in their pockets. We don't know where they started, but they ended up in a cheap hotel. We got a call from the Shore Patrol early Monday morning. They'd gotten a complaint that the two boys were causing a disturbance in the hotel. They picked them up and found they both were in a pretty bad way. They had them shipped to the Naval Hospital down at Long Beach. By the time they got there, they were really rocky.
Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I don't quite see just how we're connected with this.
Well, I'm getting to that.
I'm sorry.
All right, I'm a little long-winded. Anyway, last night, the boys had been AWOL for over 2 weeks. They were brought into the hospital, like I said. The doctors did what they could, but it was too late to help. One of the boys died late last night. We're not sure about the other one. That's where you come in, sir. They were both poisoned.
9:06 a.m. Frank and I talked with Captain Norman, then we checked out a Trippz car and left for Long Beach. When we got there, we talked with the doctor in charge. He told us that it would be later that night before the boy would be completely out of danger. He said, however, that we could talk to him if we phrased our questions so that the answers could be kept fairly brief. We looked over the boy's record. His full name was Jack Wayne Walker, age 24. He'd enlisted in the Marine Corps on January 14, 1950. He spent almost a year in the Far East, and his service record had been good until this time. The record of the victim, PFC Edward Monahan, was pretty much the same. The boys had both come from the same town in Arkansas. The date of their enlistment was the same. They'd served overseas the same time. At 3:48 p.m., the doctor ushered us into Jack Walker's room.
Who are you?
Police officer, Jack. We'd like to talk to you.
Well, what's it about? I haven't done anything. At least I don't think I did.
No, it's not that. We'd like to find out what happened while you were up in L.A.
Well, I killed my buddy up there. That's what happened. You heard about that, didn't you?
Yes, we did. That's what we want to talk to you about.
Poor Ed. Year in Korea. Guys taking pot shots at us. Cold, mud. And we got to come back here to get it. I didn't trust that little crumb. I knew we shouldn't have had anything to do with it.
Well, you shouldn't have trusted who, Jack?
Stubby.
You know the rest of his name?
No, just Stubby. I just can't believe it about Ed. We shoved off for L.A. going to have a last fling. Ed was getting married as soon as we got home.
All right, if you could just start right at the beginning.
Well, sure. Well, first we both had a 48-hour pass. We figured to go to L.A., like I said, for last fling. A few drinks, look at some of the lights, have a little fun. Sort of a bachelor party for Ed before he got hit, you know. Well, we pulled into town. See, I think it was Saturday morning. A couple of buddies told us about a joint up there where we could have some fun.
Yeah.
So we head up there, and nice little place, that hour of the morning, I guess about 10:30. Well, we start in to drink. It gets pretty foggy after that. Like little parts in a jigsaw, you know. You sort of see a little bit of everything, but the whole picture ain't there.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we hung around the place for 2 days, and then it all really goes black. The next thing I remember, we woke up in some flea bag. I remember looking at the calendar on the wall. We was already a couple days AWOL. Ed and I talked about what we should do, and then we get to trying to think up an excuse for the CO for being AWOL. And our CO ain't easy. He's had experts trying. Ed says he figure out something, so we start to the bus depot, get back to base. On the way, we pass this bar, and Ed says, well, maybe we ought to stop and have one more for the road, so we do. And I don't remember much for a couple more days. And I remember once we stopped and watched the guy get tattooed. Ed and I got talking about it, you know, whether or not we should have it done. Finally, we figured it was kind of kid stuff, so we didn't. I remember that because it was right after we left the tattoo place, went to this bar, we met Stubby.
Well, this is the fellow that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's him.
And you met him in a bar?
Yeah. Ed and I were sitting there trying to figure out what we was going to do, you know. We were pretty broke by this time, and then we was over 2 weeks AWOL. Anyway, Slicer, we had big trouble.
Yeah.
Well, we walked into this place. It was about 4:35 in the afternoon. At least near as I can tell, that's about what time it was. The whole deal gets kind of foggy. We sat down at this bar and ordered a drink, and just sitting there minding our own business, trying to figure what we ought to do. Then this Stubby joker comes up, sits down next to Ed, brings a drink with him.
He was in the bar when you came in, is that right?
Yeah, well, at least I think so. I didn't pay much attention, but he had a drink when he come up to Ed and me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he got to talk about the Corps, and next thing we know, he's setting up the drink.
Mm-hmm.
The way we was fixed as long as he wanted to buy, we wasn't going to argue.
Mm-hmm. Did they seem to know this Stubby in the bar?
Yeah, the girl that waits on the table called him my name.
All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, this Stubby kept going on about how he liked the Corps and how he'd won a whole flock of citations in Korea. Told us all about the time he'd spent in Japan. First, we thought he was just throwing a bunch of coconuts at us, but we'd ask him about places in Korea and things you could only know if you was there. He'd come up with the answers all right, but even with all that, there was something that just didn't ring true.
Yeah.
Anyway, along about 8 or 8:30 that night, Stubby got in a thrash with the bartender, something about the price of the drink, so he suggested we go up to his place and get a jug, you know, and drink up there. Well, I wasn't too hot for the idea, but Ed said we had nothing to lose. And we didn't have a sack for the night, and there wasn't much dough left, so we shoved off with it.
Where'd this Stubby live?
A hotel down on 5th. I'll tell you how to find the place.
Same place you were picked up in?
Yeah.
We got the address there.
Oh, okay.
Well, what happened when you got Stubby's room?
Well, we cracked the jug, sat around drinking for a while, and then Ed and I went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, the next morning we had the biggest hangovers in the entire United States and Canada, both of us. We felt miserable. Ed started beefing about the cheap booze Stubby rung in on us. That's when he tried to tout us on them pills.
What pills are those?
Oh, them things supposed to relieve hangovers.
Well, you mean the kind they sell in drugstores?
No, damn. Stubby told us about that one. He'd come back to the States. He'd stood some duty in the hospital and said that while he was there, he got them pills. Said there was a special prescription, that they was great for head shrinking. He wanted us to try them.
Did you?
Well, no, not right away. He kept asking us, though, kidding us about being big, tough Marines with a hangover. And then he took one of the pills. Leastwise, we thought he did. So Ed and I figured then we didn't have anything to lose.
You took one of these hangover pills then, did you?
Yeah, we both did.
Mm-hmm. What happened then?
Well, nothing right away. Stubby said it'd take a little time for it to take effect. We got up and started to get dressed. Ed and I thought we'd better get back to the base, you know. We'd probably be in enough trouble as it was without worrying about a hangover.
Yeah. You left the room?
No, we was just getting our stuff together, and Ed took sick. Said he had awful pain in the stomach, like a cramp, you know. And we asked Stubby if the pill could have caused it. He said no. Must have been the booze.
Yeah.
Well, right about then, I was getting ready to mop up the place with this Stubby. I figured sure he'd given us a Mickey. I couldn't figure why, though. Then it hit me.
A pill, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Real bad cramps in my stomach. I got real dizzy. The room started to go around. And we asked the Stubby to call a doctor, and that's when we knew he was really in trouble.
How's that?
Well, we knew then he was nuts off his trolley. And neither of us could walk. Ed doubled up and passed out, and I could hardly keep awake. We both just lay there on the floor. I kept asking this bum to get us a medic.
Did he?
No, he just stood there and laughed at us. Laughed like a crazy fool. He kept saying we was big, strong Marines. We should be able to take a little stomach ache without running to a doctor.
There's no time did he make any attempt to get you medical help?
Just like I said, he just stood there and laughed at us. Then he got real mean. Got a crazy leer on his face. Said he'd show us, he'd fix us up good for what we'd done.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I don't know. All I thought about was getting Ed and me to a doc. About this time, I didn't much care what the little screwball did. Then it really started hopping on how he's getting even with us. I tried to get at him. I'd have killed him if I could have. I tried to get at him, but I fell and went out, I guess. That's when he said that thing about that we wouldn't be the last ones to get. What? Well, he said like this, you guys are the first, just the first, but there's going to be more, a lot more. We continued to talk to Jack Walker. He gave us a complete description of the man he'd known as Stubby, and going over the story again with him, there were a few changes in it, but none that couldn't be accounted for by his condition. We got the address of the bar where he'd met Stubby. We checked with the doctor, and he told us that both boys had been given a powerful corrosive poison. He went on to say that it was a miracle that Jack Walker was still alive. 9:26 p.m. Frank and I drove back to Los Angeles. We checked into the office and ran the name Stubby through the moniker file and R&I, but we found nothing. We got out a local and an APB on the description and the name. The staff's office started to run on the MO. Frank and I checked the hotel on 5th Street, and the manager showed us the room, but he said that it had been cleaned and occupied since the two Marines had left. Leighton Prince went over the room, but failed to come up with anything. We took the hotel registration card and booked it in as evidence. The man had signed his name as Alton Richard. The manager gave us the same description as the one we'd gotten from the Marines. We ran the name through R&I, but we failed to come up with any new leads. There'd been no replies to the broadcast, and the staff's office had finished the run and had come up with 4 possible suspects. Leads were checked out, but they led us nowhere. 2:30 a.m. We checked the bar, but we found it was closed. Wednesday, 8:14 a.m. We briefed Captain Lorman on the development, and then we went over to again check the bar.
Wait, you left checking the bar till after it was closed?
The place was deserted except for one man drinking a beer. The waitress was sitting in a rear booth filing her fingernails. Frank and I went back to talk to her.
Yeah, something you want?
Well, police officers, miss. We'd like to talk to you.
Cops, huh?
Yes, ma'am. This is my partner, Joe Friday. My name's Smith.
Yes. Boy, does that sound phony.
Here's my ID card.
Yes, Smith, all right. What do you want?
Do you mind if we sit down?
No, go ahead, Liz.
Thank you.
What's this all about?
Do you work here, Stubby?
Yeah, most of the time.
What's your name, miss?
Vera. Vera Gay.
Miss Gay, were you working here around the 8th and 9th to the 10th of July?
Yeah, and you can make it Vera.
Mm-hmm. You know most people who come in here regularly?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, if you look at this description, tell us if you know the man here.
There'll be a
White male American.
5'7" to 5'9", 155 pounds, Stubby.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know him. Comes in here all the time. Nice guy. Loud when he gets drunk. It's always nice to meet, though. Tells me I should be in pictures. You know, movies.
Yes, ma'am. Have you seen him today?
No, you had to ever get them before maybe noon, 1 o'clock. It doesn't bother you, does it? You saw him the nails?
Not at all.
It does bother some people, you know. Like running a piece of chalk down a blackboard.
Miss Stubby, does he have another name? Did you know it?
Yeah, Paul Rogers.
That's another one, Joe. No. How do you want to go ahead, miss?
I went out with him a couple of times. Finally gave it up. I couldn't go that route.
What's that, ma'am?
All he talked about was either him in the Marine Corps and what a big hero he was, or else how he was going to get me in pictures, you know, in movies.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't come out to California to get in the movies. No, I came out to be a private secretary. I mean, those jobs are a little hard to get, so I work here. Make enough for coffee and cakes. And when a job comes along, I'll take it. Work in a big office, nice boss. Who knows, he might even marry me. You know, that movie hooked for me, no sir, not your little Vera.
Did you work on the night of the 9th? Night before last?
Let's see, yeah, I was in.
You happened to see the Stubby Rogers that night?
Well, you gotta think about that. Let's see. That was the night we had the fight just before closing. Yeah, he was in earlier.
Did you happen to notice if he was with anybody?
What's it all about? You do something you want him for?
No, we just like to talk to him.
Yeah. Well, if he did anything, we had nothing to do with it. This is a good place. We got nothing to do with the people who come in. Got the price of a drink, they get served. We don't ask for trouble.
Oh, we aren't going to cause any trouble, miss. We just want to talk to this Rogers.
Yeah, well, as long as we aren't wrung into it.
You remember if he was with anyone?
Yeah, he was with a couple of Marines. That's with him. Had a beef with Sam. He's the night bartender. Complained that the drinks were too high. I don't know what he was crying about. He's been drinking here a long time. Never had problems before.
You saw him leave with these two Marines then?
Yeah, 3 of them walked out. I think actually they sort of floated up. The 2 kids were really boiled.
You remember what time it was when they left?
Well, that'd be kind of hard to tell. We were pretty busy.
It was pretty important, miss.
I don't think. I guess maybe around 8, maybe 8:30, around in there. Just a guess, though.
Do you have any idea where this Rogers lived?
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. Hotel on South Hill.
Can you give us the address?
Yeah, I got it in the purse. I should have known he was a phony, always saying I thought he could get me in pictures, you know, movies.
Yes.
Don't come that way. Don't you understand? I didn't come out here to get in pictures. I came out to be a private secretary. Here's the address. Here, keep it. I won't be using it anymore.
Well, thank you, Miss Kate. Here's our card. If you think of anything more you think we ought to know, we'd appreciate a call from her.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure appreciate your help.
Well, you never know. Maybe I'll need your help sometime. Matter of fact, you might be able to lend me a hand.
What's that, miss?
You know any picture producers? You know, movies.
Frank called the name Paul Rogers into the office, and a supplementary broadcast and an APB were gotten out. A stakeout was arranged on the bar. We went back to the city hall, and a check through R&I on the name Paul Rogers netted us nothing. We drove over to the hotel on South Hill. The manager told us that Rogers was not in his room. He went on to say that Rogers had not been using his room regularly for the past week or so, but that he had been in a couple of days before in the company of a soldier, and that as far as he knew, the soldier was still in. In the company of the manager, Frank and I went upstairs. The manager unlocked the door, and we went in. Frank, there's someone in bed. Yeah. Come on, you. How about it? Just a minute. How about it, Joe? I don't know. He's dead.
$30,000, one texter from Larry says, for the price of a house. That's the change there. $8 here in Kamloops. Lyle says for 1 2x4x8. And HT stands for heat treated from the lower mainland text messages. Thank you very much. 877-399-9898. Your calls, your text messages, always welcome here. It's The Shift. I'm Shane Hewitt. In case you missed it, Ryan O'Donnell is coming up for you next. Good morning, Toronto.
It's dark. Rules for you.
Yeah, and I've always been completely honest about that. But the truth of the matter is,
still building their mansions out of 2x4s and chipboard.
I've been incredibly privileged, mainly by the love of a family that goes beyond my father. That's the greatest.
At the end of the 1980s, there were almost 800,000 foreign soldiers stationed in both parts of Germany, mainly British, French, and US troops in West Germany, and Soviet soldiers in East Germany. Following the end of the Cold War and German reunification, the occupying powers.
So even the United Nations.
Wednesday, July 11th, 12:40 p.m. We called the coroner's office and we got in touch with the crime lab and the photographer. After the pictures had been taken, the body was removed. The victim was a soldier in his mid-30s. On the nightstand beside the bed, we found an empty pill bottle and a suicide note. The note was booked as evidence and turned over to Don Meyer for comparison with the handwriting taken from the hotel registration card that Rogers had signed. The men from Leighton Prints went over the place thoroughly. They came up with several classifiable prints. Fingerprints found on the bottle belonged to the victim. There were several other
What if the killer
which were not
signed
identified. The crime lab went over the room, then they went back to the lab to make their analysis. All officers in the area were alerted to be on the lookout for Rogers. Frank and I talked to the manager of the hotel, a Henry Corey. He told us that Rogers had lived in the hotel for the past 4.5 months. He said that Rogers was quiet, kept pretty much to himself, and for the most part was a good tenant. He said that on several occasions Rogers had gotten behind in his rent, but that he'd always managed to come up with the money. The manager told us that in the conversations he'd had with Rogers, the main topic had been the Marine Corps and the suspect's record overseas. Rogers presented himself as an armchair general, constantly calling down the way the situation was being handled. He would refer to his own exploits, but when questioned about his leaving the service, he became vague and evasive. Additional handwriting samples were obtained and sent to Meyer. The manager told us that the latest victim had come in with Rogers the night before, and that at the time he'd been pretty drunk. They'd gone upstairs, and when Rogers had left in the morning, the manager had assumed that the soldier had gone the night before. 3:20 p.m. Frank and I went back to relieve the stakeout at the bar.
Back again?
Yes, Miss Kay.
Sit down.
Thank you.
It seems like every time I see you, I'm doing something with my nails. This morning filing them, now I'm filing them again. I'm going to put polish on them after this. Guess you think I'm pretty vain.
No, not at all, miss.
New color called Frosted Rose, you see? Kind of iridescent, what the label says. To sprinkle your nails in stardust.
Yes, ma'am.
Pretty bottle, too. You should put things up nice nowadays. Uh-oh, here comes your boy.
It's Rogers. Yeah.
Nice observation.
Yes, Stubby, well, it's me. Perfect, Tom. How's it going, Stubby? Same old Sixers, boy. Yeah, pretty dull. Hey, you're doing a great business. No, it's early yet. Here's your drink. It'll be 4 bits. There you go. All right, thanks. All right, Frank, let's go.
No trouble now.
Not unless he makes it. Hi, fellas. Something you want? You Paul Rogers? Yeah, who are you? Police officers. We'd like to talk to you.
I don't want any trouble in here.
No, there's not going to be any trouble.
Always fights. Why is everybody comes into a bar and starts fights? Ain't there someplace else to be?
All right, come on, Rogers.
What for? You got nothing to hold me in.
We'll talk to you about that, too.
Well, let me finish my drink.
No, afraid not. Let's go now.
Like I said, I was going to finish my drink. Don't lean.
Let's can it, mister, and go.
I said I was going to finish my drink, though.
All right, mister, on your feet. Nothing on him. Take him to the office.
Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Sure appreciate it.
Well, what's that?
Thought for a minute there you're going to have a fight.
We took the suspect back to the city hall, then we checked the name through the Marine base in San Diego. Lieutenant Richard Houston called back to say that Rogers had received a court-martial and a dishonorable discharge in January of that year. He'd been tried by a military court on the charge of stealing alcohol from the hospital pharmacy and selling it to the patients in the hospital. We stopped in handwriting analysis, and Don Meyer took an exemplar of the suspect's writing. When we checked by the office, there was a message from Sergeant Bill Cummings and Harry Hansen stating that their investigation had shown that the death of the soldier in Rogers' room was suicide beyond any doubt. 7:46 p.m. Frank and I talked to the suspect in the interrogation room.
Terrible thing treating a veteran like this.
All right, let's save it, Rogers. There's a few questions we'd like some answers to.
I got nothing to hide.
All right, what were the conditions of your discharge from the Marine Corps?
What do you mean?
Did you get an honorable discharge or a dishonorable discharge?
I had a little trouble. Lousy officers never did understand what the problems of the enlisted man were.
What do you do for a living, Rogers?
I work. Where? Around.
You have a steady job?
What do you mean steady?
One you've held for, say, more than 6 months?
I haven't been out of the service that long.
Where'd you serve in the Corps?
Japan, Korea.
How long were you there?
About 4 or 5 months.
Why'd you come back?
I was wounded.
How?
What do you mean, how?
Just that. How were you wounded?
Well, I wasn't exactly wounded. I had my feet frostbit.
According to this here, you went AWOL and got lost. When they found you, your feet were frozen. Is that right?
What's that you got?
Your record in the Corps.
Got a lot of nerve digging into that. That's what you got me in here for anyway. I done nothing that puts me in line for this kind of treatment.
You know a couple of Marines named Ed Monahan and Jack Walker?
Monahan? Walker? No, I don't think I know him.
You ever register in a hotel on 5th Street?
No, I live over on Hill.
You know a soldier named Marty Wilson?
What's he got to do with it?
We found him dead in your room.
You're cracking up.
Yeah, sure, Rogers. We just dreamed we found that body.
Had nothing to do with him. Met him in a bar. He said he wasn't feeling too good. Said he didn't have a place to sleep. I let him have my room. Something wrong in that? Be a little kind, and now even that gets you in trouble.
You sure you don't know a Marine named Ed Monahan?
Positive.
There's something wrong, Rogers. Girl at the bar said she saw you leave the place with 2 Marines. They could have been Monahan and Walker.
Well, maybe I know them. I might and still not know their names.
You didn't take them up to a room you'd rented in a hotel on 5th Street?
No, I told you once I never lived on 5th.
Checked with our handwriting man. He says your writing matches some samples we found on the hotel register.
Maybe I write like somebody else.
No, we don't think so, mister. How about Jack Walker? Maybe you know him, you just didn't remember him.
No, I keep telling you, I don't know them.
Vera says you do.
Well, she's lying.
Is she?
Sure she is. She's trying to save her own skin.
From what?
She doesn't want to stand a rap for murder, can't you see?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I'm saying nothing until I see my lawyer.
You sure you don't want to tell us why you did it?
I got nothing to say.
Makes it tough, Roger.
What do you mean?
Just makes it rough, that's all. Looks like you're going to have to stand a murder rap.
Yeah?
That's the way it looks.
Well, I didn't mean it. I didn't. I just wanted to get even, that's all. Just get even.
For what, Roger?
For the way the Corps treated me. Kicked me out. I didn't do anything really wrong. Dropped a little alcohol, that's all. No harm done.
They look at it a little different.
Yeah, that's the trouble. Stinking brass, they're all alike. They don't care what happens to us, the guys in the field. Tried to get a job. I looked everywhere. I just didn't fit. Seemed like everywhere I went, I got into trouble. I wanted like it was when I first went in. Like it was after boot camp. Walking down the street, girls looking at you, a Marine, a big man. They took that away from me. They wouldn't let me enlist again. I tried, but they wouldn't let me. You can understand what that'd do to a guy, can't you?
I don't know.
It tore me apart. Right then, I decided to get even with all the stinking gyrenes in the world. They wouldn't let me in, and I hated them.
Yeah. Remember what happened the day you gave the 2 boys the pills, do you?
Sure, remember all of it. Oh, they cried for a medic. They weren't big men then. No, sir, they sure weren't.
All right, Rogers, we'll get a stenographer.
Tell me, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Did I get both of them?
No, Walker's going to be all right.
He the young one?
That's right.
A real nice kid. Lucky, too.
Is that right?
Yeah, no worries. Really got it made. Uniform, that's what does it. Uniform makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, well, don't worry, you'll get one.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent. On November 13th, trial was held in Department 87, Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, the results of that trial. Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. In modern crime detection, the working detective depends on scientific research. He relies on the services of trained experts in ballistics, communications,
A few hours. If you are attacked by bees, run away as fast as possible, really? And call 911? Is that actually the advice, right?
Oh, that's what they gave, but I was a little surprised when I read that because I was always taught that if you see a bee, just chill out. Don't run away. But maybe in the context of there are 15,000 bees in front of you, you might want to take a jog. Maybe that's where it makes more sense.
I don't know, man. I mean, if you're going to run away, first thing you do is trip your friend. Then run away.
You use them as cannon fodder.
That's right. It's the same rule as bears, right? Hand your friend the bacon, run away. This is bad advice. Don't listen to this advice. Welcome back, by the way, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not really sure how I went from not being able to hear everything to being so loud that if I whispered, I would break the computer to now being normal.
Yeah, you had like a real loud, creepy whisper thing happening.
It's very true. Roller coaster of emotions here.
All right.
It's harder than it looks, folks.
Check more like what is it and how does it work?
Computer says no.
Is your computer plugged in, sir? Is your computer turned on? There's a reason why they asked that question. Are you okay? A very old, are you okay with made-for-TV movies? Hey.
I think that they're funny and they have some just excellent caliber acting in them, usually.
Oh, I watched the worst movie this weekend. That was exactly that.
What'd you watch?
I'm going to talk to Steve Stebbin because it seems to me that Prime has a few great movies and shows, and then it's like they went up